afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to our February 20th Board of County Commission meeting. I will be sitting in today for Commissioner Jenkins, and I know he wishes he could be here. I am going to take a few things out of order because there are some residents that were waiting patiently all morning long prior to our last agenda item to do some public commenting. So I'm going to take public hearing number 3, legislative public hearing to consider adoption of the Comprehensive Plan Amendment CPA 23-18, Manatee Pocket Mooring Field Upland Facility, which then we'll follow that with PHQJ2 and then jump back up to PH2. Okay, so we have Carolyn and Clyde here to present. Take it away.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Grunwald. I'm with
Pull the mic in a little bit.
Sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Grunwald. I'm a planner with the Growth Management Department. Here to discuss the Manatee Pocket Mooring Field Upland Facility with you today. This is a small-scale amendment to the future land use map for 0.02 acres of an abandoned right-of-way. And this is to assign a future land use of marine waterfront commercial to that abandoned right-of-way at the intersection of Southeast Bayview Street and Southeast Park Drive. The abandoned right-of-way will adjoin the county-owned parcel to the east for a total of 0.47 acres. The site has public water and sewer available to it. This is proposed to for mandatory access to the sports facilities and to better facilitate redevelopment at the waterfront and the Port Salerno CRA. The proposed marine waterfront commercial land use allows for water-dependent uses. The comp plan requires that one of the four criteria to have been met for staff to recommend approval. All four criteria have been met. The proposed change does not cause a proliferation of sprawl based upon the criteria found in state statutes, and it is consistent with the marine waterfront commercial future land uses to the north and south. To the north, you have Pirates Cove Marina, and to the south, you have the commercial fishing docks. The comp plan requires that the marine waterfront commercial land use designation be implemented through the waterfront subdistrict for each CRA, and this will be discussed in our next public hearing. Staff recommends approval. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for staff? I'm going to take public comment. Tiffany Perry. And if anybody else would like to make public comment, please fill out a form. If you did speak this morning, then you are not eligible to speak again on the same topic.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts with you today. As someone who calls Port Salerno home and as a representative of Save Our Salerno, I'm here to voice my concerns about the plans for the Manatee Pocket Mooring Field Upland Facility. Manatee Park has always been a peaceful haven for our community, reflecting our dedication to preserving the natural beauty around us. However, this new proposal threatens to disrupt that harmony, favoring temporary benefits over the enduring values we hold dear. A major concern is parking. The competition for parking spaces is already intense among Pirates Cove fishermen and tourists. Introducing a new facility without expanding parking capacity is not just thoughtless, it directly impacts our daily life. Boats might be out at sea, but their owners' cars fill our streets. The proposal was originally presented as a way to keep derelict boats off our waterways, promising collaboration and input from our community without clear communication about how it will serve Port Salerno's needs. Manatee Park's significance can't be understated. It is more than just a patch of green, it is a connection to the water for many of us, a place for relaxation, recreation, and natural beauty. In summary, I ask that you listen to the collective voice of Port Salerno. We're asking for thoughtful solutions that will improve our quality of life, protect our environment, and honor our community's heritage. Thank you for considering our concerns and for taking the time to hear from the people of Port Salerno.
Thank you. One more? Ma'am, just state your name for the record, and then we'll take
Nicole Watson.
at the microphone.
Hey, as a Florida native as well as a longtime Port Salerno resident, Butch was here earlier saying that, they don't consider that a park. It has a sign that says Manatee Park. How is it not considered a park? Also, after hearing the Jensen Beach gentleman, I forget his name, Bob Haas, saying that we have a mooring field in Jensen and put up a facility much like that, does the cost outweigh, or even will it pay for itself, or is that just going to be a way to waste more money right there and alter that park for future generations to come? My kids were raised on those docks. I mean, I still have family that fish, and I don't know. It just seems if it's not going to make enough money to cover the cost of building this facility, it seems like a no-win for everybody, So anyway, my thoughts, something to consider, and there could be a better spot over there. There's many other little places that could be looked at. So maybe let's look at some other places possibly. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comment, then did that complete your presentation? I'll go back to the board for any questions or comments. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions for staff, and I'm not sure if you are the right staff to hear these questions. I did get some resident feedback in the last couple of days about this. Obviously, each of the commissioners represents everyone in the county, but we try to focus majority of our attention in our districts. That being said, I had several people reach out to me on this. Some opposed, some that I had heard would have been opposed, and then when I spoke to them, they said they weren't, which then forces me into a situation where I have to verify all of the comments that I'm hearing. This morning, it was interesting to have Mr. Olson here, because in my mind, the Port Salerno Dock Authority is a major player in this area. There was also a couple of business owners that didn't give me permission to necessarily mention their names, but they're right in that category right there, that said that they didn't necessarily have a problem with this. But then we hear from residents that say they do, and NAC members that say they do. So I'm just wondering, with the feedback that we're hearing, the oppositional feedback that we're hearing, have some of these concerns, can you two or someone else, did you look at other potential sites? Is that park, I tried to pull it up, by the time I got off work last night, it would have been dark to go over there before I realized, what I tell the people that call me, especially when they call me within 24 hours of an agenda item, that we only know what we know. If there is a undercurrent of opposition, until I hear from those people, I don't know that there is. I read an agenda item, I see the information, I see staff's recommendation. That's what I'm basing my decision on, unless I'm intimately familiar with the situation. And to be honest, in this particular case, I wasn't. This morning, we're hearing from comments about, well, maybe we shouldn't have a mooring field. And if I'm not mistaken, we already have a mooring field there. And part of the deal with that was to create certain inland or on-land services. So the concept that we don't need them or we shouldn't do them, no pun intended, that ship has sailed.
Correct.
So I'm stuck now to try to make a decision based on public feedback that I've heard, staff's recommendation, the recommendation from the representative of the Port Salerno Dock Authority. So all I can do, representing all of the constituents, is ask the same questions. I have heard from sources that I asked during the lunch break that a sketch of the potential facility was shown at an NAC meeting. Is that correct? Head shaking doesn't work.
Commissioner, first of all, Clyde Doolin for the record, and before Mr. Zama has a chance to speak, I'll be happy to turn it over to him. This is a future land use map amendment, public hearing. You can choose to assign or not assign this land use designation. It's a legislative public hearing. Even if you assign this future land use designation and add it to the acreage or the half acre of property that you see in blue along there, that won't have any effect on necessarily what the plans are for designing a facility and what that facility may be. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Zama so that he can potentially answer any questions about the facility that's planned for the property.
Well, let me just preface it or explain why I'm asking, and I appreciate what you're saying. And for those of us on the inside, we get that. But the public, this is the first thing, they hear it coming to us, they're not getting into the land uses and stuff like that. If they hear we say yes to the land use, they think it's a yes. I know that there's two steps today, but I just need, I could vote on the land use and just leave it there and then vote no on something down the road to stop it. I just want so that I'm making an educated decision myself, but also to let the public hear. The thing, and I have tremendous respect and have had unbelievable success with our staff. You know how I feel about the staff. But what I can sometimes find frustrating, and I'm assuming for my colleagues as well, is that all of the interested stakeholders need to be informed and included in the process. Now, you could tell me that they have been, and you could say this is when it happened. But when I hear from stakeholder groups that are legitimate stakeholder groups, not individuals necessarily, groups, and they say, we're not familiar, or we don't know, or no one offered us our ability to put our feedback in, then some of us that are not as intimately familiar with this specific issue, which in the course of the entire agenda, to me, looked relatively small. But if you live right next to it, or if it's something that's so what is it? Is it at a quaint little park where you can sit and watch the sunrise from a park bench looking at the water? Or is it what we heard this morning where it's a couple of benches and a picnic table or so, and it's completely blocked by mangroves? What are we talking about here? And if this facility, I guess the biggest question is it open to the general public to use? Is it open to just customers of the mooring field and fishermen? Is it open for some hours of the day to become at least a benefit to all residents as a restroom? Is there a way to position the building on the property that there's still benches that look at the water? Maybe it could become an enhancement. Mr. Zama.
Mr. Zama, are you going to answer all that?
I'd be glad to answer. George Zama, Public Works Deputy Director. Yeah, there's quite a bit to this facility. First and foremost, the board approved a project for the mooring field. They also approved a grant to construct the mooring field and facilities that are required by the management plan. So with that, there was an investment made for a dinghy dock that's now constructed, upwards of $1.5 million for the moorers to utilize their dinghies and carry goods to and from their vessels to the upland. So part of the management plan is we have to provide facilities for restrooms and a utility for a washer dryer for their clothing and whatnot. So we can provide it through a public and private partnership, or the county has to physically house the facility. We've tried both options. We tried the public-private partnership first, and unfortunately, we did go out to bid, and unfortunately, we couldn't reach an agreement with the private property owner. So now we are, we went with the option to construct a facility. And with that, we We identified this area because we've already made a great investment in the dinghy dock. It makes sense to have a facility directly adjacent to the dock because of all the goods. I mean, you have to think about these folks are carrying baskets of laundry, they're going to get groceries. You don't really want them to transport these types of goods very far, and in the elements, mind you. So we want to provide a facility that's directly adjacent to the dock. So the facility that we programmed was as efficient as possible. We communicated with several departments, and Parks, much like Jensen Beach, agreed to manage the facility. They requested an office to manage the facility, so we were able to accommodate 4 restrooms, 4 unisex restrooms, 2 of which have a shower, which is a requirement in the management plan, and an office and a utility room. And it's 800 square feet. It's scheduled to be 20 by 40. So we feel it's a very efficient building for this proximity to serve its purpose. And the area itself is really just a green space adjacent to the boardwalk with mangrove buffer between the waterway. It has a few picnic and park benches, 2 of which are located within the building footprint that will be moved to other areas adjacent to new walkways that will be constructed.
Thank you. With the restrooms, I know that the concept of leaving restrooms open, we have some in Palm City as well. I see a tremendous amount of, people coming and going to use the restrooms, which obviously if you're building restrooms and people need to use them, then that's a good thing. With that in mind, with the ones at the mooring field facility, is it possible, I see in the city of Stewart by their city hall, they have restrooms that have a timed magnetic locking system on them. Is it possible that one of the 4 unisex restrooms without the showers could be used for the general public for operating hours during the day, and then the others? I know that there was some concern from residents about if you build all these restrooms, but you're going to exclude the general public, and originally it was just mooring field customers, and then it was mooring field customers and the fishermen. I guess we're always looking for restrooms. So we've checked off that a long time issue for them. But the concern that I had heard as an outsider from the area is that there was no restrooms for the rest of the general public. Could one of them, if they're all individual like that, be somehow structured through technology to be available to residents in the appropriate hours and not open 24 hours a day, because sadly there's always vandalism and other issues that happen. My goal, as my final comment, would be, this sounds like a terrific opportunity that we're doing here. It's an enhancement to the area, but some of our closest residents don't see it that way. Now, I know we're not going to make everybody happy, but it seems like with a couple of pivots, we could make a majority of our residents happy. And if we can't, at least let's educate them, which I think we've gone a long way today to do, on why we're doing what we're doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I believe it's Commissioner Smith and then Commissioner Hurd.
Sort of along the same lines of Ed's comments or thoughts. I asked Don if Kevin Abate was here because there's been some criticism about whether Jensen's financially stable or not. I know what the answer is, but I want to hear a staff person tell us that. We don't have the benefit of having apparently that presentation today. We've got our CRA director sitting over here. We should hear from her as to how did we get here, what has been done, what is the NAC's position, because one of our speakers this morning was an NAC member. And so there's like a whole bunch of conversation that's just kind of like out there that we're not getting any answers for or commentary. And some of Ed's questions are legitimate.
You meant all of them.
Huh? You meant all of them, yeah. So I if I'm at a quandary too. I mean, I think I know what the answers are, but I think our staff should be presenting, here's the background, here's how we got here, here's how long it took with the private sector to negotiate. We did the same thing in Jensen. We went out to RFP 2 times maybe in Jensen for the mooring field upland facilities. We thought we had a deal constructed with one of the marina operators, and that fell through at the last minute, or not the last minute, but at some part of the conversation. There was a lot of criticism about building the facility in the park at Jensen Beach Causeway. It's turned out fantastic. People come and they go. They have access to the gate. They have a special code system that only they have access to it. I'm pretty sure, again, I think I know the answer, but I think only the boaters have access to the restrooms. But if this hasn't been hashed out to the point, and maybe it has been, but we haven't heard that. There he is, there's one of them. If we haven't heard, if the public hasn't heard, or we haven't heard that this conversation has been fully vetted and hashed out, then you could see where the public would think there's confusion as to what's happening. So I would ask if Mr. Abate, if one of you can switch, or he can
Commissioner
come
Smith,
over.
let me get Commissioner Hurd's comments out on the table, then I have a question, and then staff, I think, could hopefully address them all at the same time, and Don has his light on.
Well, first of all, the reason why the mooring field was proposed in the beginning was because the anchorage was unsafe, because there were lots of derelict, unattended boats. They were dragging anchor during storms and crashing into people's docks, and this was a fine solution, and we got a grant in order to achieve this. This proposal is for changing the land use on an abandoned right-of-way 2/100ths of an acre. Move approval.
Okay, so I have one question, and then I'm going to give Don and Kevin an opportunity. And my question would go to George, is that when you said it was bid unsuccessfully, does that mean no one bid on the mooring field? Or what, when you say the bid was unsuccessful and you tried to put together a private partnership, was no one interested in participating in that?
We had one bidder, and that was through an RFP that we procured, and we entered negotiations, and it lasted nine to 10 months. And we had constraints with our grants to open the facility, and we had to terminate the negotiation.
What are the current constraints with the grant?
Well, with teamwork with our Parks Department, we have the facility open with a restroom trailer. So we're meeting minimum obligations for now, but we do need the utility. We've informed the granting agency that we have planned improvements for a full site or full facility, so they're allowing us to use a temporary facility.
Okay. And then I'm going to give Don the floor, and then Kevin, you.
So Commissioner, in regards to the negotiations, because I entered them a little bit too, it really came down to the fact that, working with a government entity, there are certain disclosure and audit requirements that we had, and how you negotiate the either the leasing of the space or the operation. And we just simply weren't able to come down to an agreement where we could meet our audit requirements, and the business owner didn't feel that they could be successful in operating it. So it ended. We ended in that particular case. We left the door open to perhaps work with them again in the future, or any other business in the area. So it was. I would say we left amicably, and certainly weren't able to come to a resolution. So in the meantime, the number of points of access to this project are very limited on where you can achieve this, and then, of course, the investment in where you actually land the individual. So staff worked with, developing this site as potential, which hasn't been approved yet, other than a temporary use. much like we did with Jensen Beach, and Kevin can answer the financial questions. I could as well, but we'll let Kevin talk about the operation of the Jensen Field, which has been very successful, even in spite of some startup modifications they had to do. So, Kevin?
Well, both facilities, Jensen Beach, Mornfield, and Port Salerno, are doing really well. I just had some numbers this morning on Port Salerno. We've collected about $38,000 in revenue. And we don't have many expenses. We have one harbor master that manages both mooring fields at Jensen and Port Salerno. And Kevin Abate, for the record, Parks Director. Sorry about that. So the goal of the program is, Port Salerno was very difficult to start with because there's been a lot of history of boats being there for many, many years. So we worked with the Sheriff's Office Marine Unit, the County Attorney's Office. We currently have a sea tow contract out for bid. It closes tomorrow. Or not sea tow, a towing service contract out to help manage these facilities that have a long, rich history, and with our ultimate goal of protecting the seagrass beds and also to collect fees from all these 42 mooring balls over at Port Salerno. So they're doing well financially. Our goals have been, since we've been asked to manage both properties, is to have them be revenue offset at best, but both facilities, you'll find next month we come forward with fund balance. We'll show you that they've been highly successful financially, and it don't cost the county any operating tax dollars. So we're looking forward to the same model at the end of the year for Port Salerno. So I'm completely comfortable with the team that we have in place to manage them at the point. But the number one complaint right now at Port Salerno is that there are no facilities, meaning washer-dryer facilities. I know that we repurposed a restroom trailer that we had at the golf course when we were under construction. We cleaned it up. It's decent, but it's certainly not a hard structure, and certainly not the facilities that Jensen Beach customers have had. So that's currently our operation update.
So Jensen Beach exceeded our operation costs by $43,000 last year, and is currently on track to do better this year.
Yeah.
And I might add, we did a market analysis before we started the project, and our revenue projection over 10 years was $1.3 million. And we use conservative estimates based off of rental rates the first few years, which we projected to be 50%, which I think Kevin can attest, has exceeded that.
Both facilities are very low cost, so you don't have many expenses at all. Right now, Port Salerno, we don't have hardly any. So we're really just paying for a one employee salary to manage and then of course, cost of fuel for the boats that we have. So it's a very low cost facility, much like our campground. So I'm very confident. We've been operating this one for a while in Jensen Beach for 2 years, and the staff does a very good job.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, I'd just follow on that, and then I'd like to ask Susan Corres to come up too. I knew the answer relative to the revenue side of this because Kevin and I talk about this all the time in our updates. The other issue that seemingly gets glazed over, at least in Jensen, a lot, the amount of environmental damage that was happening every year related to storms and boats tearing up that part of the waterway in Jensen was enormous. Every storm we would lose 1 to 2 boats. They would lose all of their fluids, presumably. Any human waste that they had on board was getting disposed of if it was going under. They were ending up on our shoreline. It was a mess. And the only way we could regulate it was to get a mooring field. Actually, we had to get legislation to even allow a mooring field to get built. And that took 5 years to do. So on the cleanup on the environmental side, at least in Jensen, it's a huge issue. If it's okay with the chair, and I don't have any other questions for Kevin, I'd like Susan Corres to come up and at least give us an overview of what the conversation has been relative to the NAC, so that this wasn't, and if it was done in a vacuum, then there's a complete pause that needs to be put on. But if it wasn't, we need to at least understand for the public what occurred.
To your one point, to your comment, I have heard from our park administrator and our harbor master that the Port Salerno community of those folks that frequent the area are very pleased with the cleanup efforts to remove all these derelict boats, and we have many, many out there, and it's just a lot cleaner now. The boats are able-bodied boats, they're not leaking sewage, and they're serviceable, and so I think that I think they've enjoyed it in the last 4 or 5 months, so, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Ms. Coors.
Good afternoon, Susan Corres, Office of Community Development. Since I have been employed here, starting in 2017, we've been bringing information about the mooring field to the Port Salerno community or referring them to those that might have more information, which would be the Coastal Department or Public Works or wherever the project was being planned at the time. Just in the past year, we've spoken about the mooring field many times. I believe it was April. Commissioner Hurd came out, spoke to those on Park Drive. Public Works was there as well to talk about what the upland facility would look like and where it would be placed. Just a recent meeting, and actually there were 2 meetings last April. There was also another meeting that we held in the Salerno Civic Center where we invited Park Drive residents to come in and talk about projects happening in that area, mooring field being one of them. At our last NAC meeting, which the date is now escaping me, early February, we again brought information about the mooring field. The community did have questions that we could not answer because there is not yet a completed site plan or design for the building. There was just a conceptual type plan that we had, and we did discuss it again at that meeting. We have discussed it in past meetings, probably 3 or 4 times just in the past year. As far as the NAC, it's not a CRA project. So there is not, I guess, a part for the NAC to play in terms of making a motion to approve or not approve. Some people like the idea, some people don't, but we don't have any particular motion that was ever being requested or made in terms of approval of the project. I will say as well, building a little bit on what Kevin said, that all of the community that live on the waterfront there seem very pleased with the fact that the derelict boat situation has been taken care of, because that's been the conversation since 2017.
Susan, is it my understanding then, even if the land use has changed, you still have some meetings and/or public outreach to come to a final site plan and/or building design?
So again,
for
it's
that?
not a CRA project, Commissioner, but we will bring back that information to the community, and we have every intention of providing benches and possibly the picnic tables. We're cleaning up the signage down there. We're getting rid of the porta potty. We're moving the dumpster to the north, or keeping the dumpster on the north end and enclosing it. So we're really doing everything possible, I think, to make the area quite livable and quite nice for the folks that live there.
Does it come back to the board, the final design, site plan
I don't believe it does.
thing? Where would the concerned public have an opportunity to participate in the next phase if the land use is changed?
So much like all of a lot of public works projects, at least the major CIP projects, Public Works performs outreach. And the outreach extends from social media to boots on the ground, having a public involvement meeting. For this type of facility, being in a CRA and a lot of other public works projects and CRAs, we use that as an avenue to reach a vast member of the community and the local community to discuss the project. In this particular case, we've done multiple updates regarding the project over the past few years as things have progressed. As far as the facility itself, we even took it a step further, and we wanted to meet with the residents of Park Drive, where this facility will be located, and we had an individual meeting with those Park Drive residents to discuss the building proximity. We went over elevations, what the building would look like. We gathered feedback on what they would like to see in a facility because we knew that this facility, we would be their neighbors. So we wanted to gather their input on this type of facility. So we've done extensive outreach, and we've worked, we've also shared the site and the elevations with the district commissioner, who represents the community, the local community. We also, as we progress to the final 100% plans, we're looking to go back for one more meeting just to discuss what the building will look like. And if it's the will of the board, I'd be glad to share what, the building elevations and the site plan.
On, you have your light on?
Yeah, just in terms of answering your question from the procedural element, which is this is a minor site plan, so it doesn't come to the board. So if the project is approved in your CIP, and then it goes through the minor site plan approval process, and we work with the district commissioner on projects that affect parks or other things like that, is how the practice has been. So that, in terms of public input, it is, as George described it, in terms of the approval process. It has to be approved in the CIP. It has to, in the terms of the budgeting process. And then in this particular case, obviously, you have to do a land use change and then a zoning change before it can even go through the site planning process. So that's the kind of the basic high-level view.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna bring it back to the board then, and we do have a motion on the table by Commissioner Hurd. Does anybody have any comments or direction?
I do have one more. So in all that said, George, post these two decisions, will you be going back to the community with anything?
Yes, we have one more scheduled meeting to discuss the final plans of the building. And we were going to meet with the Park Drive residents and obviously give another update at the next NAC meeting.
I think it would be super important to do all that so that everybody understands. And my guess is with I'm assuming all of us know who commented this morning, who's in the room today with us right now. I would assume if we hear back from those people that they're not happy with what we're doing, there'll be an opportunity for us to raise it here on the dais and say, look, we got to pause, we got to stop, we got to do something different than what we're doing. But no matter what we did, if it were to be on that site, you'd still have to have the land use and zoning change to be able to accommodate it.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if it turns out that the community says, no, we don't want it, and everybody hates it, we don't have to do anything, but we still have to facilitate an upland facility somewhere and in some reasonable time frame.
Correct.
Okay.
Understanding that the opportunity for the residents to opine at least one more time, and with an effort to reach all concerned stakeholders, what we're deciding today is not the finalized plan of this and the look and feel, it's just the land use changes. I will second the motion.
Okay, very good. Any other comments? We have a motion for staff's recommendation by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Jenkins absent. Okay, we will move on then to public hearing quasi judicial number 2. And with that, do we have any paperwork that had to be filed or?
So
We obviously don't have any interveners.
we don't have any interveners, ex parte communications.
Okay. Commissioner Smith, any ex parte communication? Commissioner Campy?
If I do, they've been filed.
Commissioner Hurd?
If I do, they've been filed.
If I have any, they've been filed. Okay, can we have the witnesses or those who will provide testimony stand to be sworn in?
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So, that completes our quasi-judicial presentation.
Good afternoon, this is Carolyn Grunwald, Growth Management Department,
Oh, yeah.
speaking about
The
the,
interveners? They give-
we're seeking to, I'm sorry.
You did good. We're just making sure she got all, she's a temporary. She's a temp.
You had to check, make sure I'm doing my job.
She is. She's doing fabulous.
This is a request to assign the Waterfront Subdistrict to the recently abandoned right-of-way of which we just spoke on in the previous public hearing. This is a request to amend Figure PS-2, the regulating plan of the Port Salerno Community Redevelopment Area. The site has public water and sewer. And the Waterfront Subdistrict is the most appropriate subdistrict to implement the marine waterfront commercial land use. This is to provide restrooms, a laundry facility, and an office space. With that, let's see here. So to the north is the Waterfront Subdistrict as well as the south. Across the street is the General Subdistrict, of which the waterfront is compatible with due to some commercial uses and such. The Waterfront Subdistrict allows for a marina, lodging, and office space, most of which is being sought. The maximum building coverage is 50% with a minimum open space of 20%. And staff recommends approval. That concludes my,
Clyde Doolin, for the record, I'd like to add a couple of more things. The notices of the public hearings have been turned in to the clerk, fulfilling the requirement for notice of surrounding property owners. And with that, we'll end staff presentation. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Anyone have questions for staff? Comes to the board then for some direction.
Excuse me,
have a-
public comment, Commissioner.
Oh, public comment, okay. Anybody have public comment on this item?
This one right here.
Good afternoon.
About the mooring field
Yeah,
facility.
yes.
My name is Margaret Rhodes. We live on Overlook Terrace. We've come to I wasn't prepared to speak today. We came to Port Salerno in 2000, but my father-in-law owned that property since the 1970s. We are directly across from Pirates Loft, Pirates Cove, and we thank you for getting that mooring field because every time there was a nor'easter, we had boats to deal with. Not necessarily always us, but neighbors. But we have tied countless boats to docks against everybody's recommendation so they don't do more damage. We said, well, what are we supposed to do? You're supposed to push them out in the water. How stupid is that? That's the maritime law, but that's a stupid law. So I really thank you for getting this. As to the upland facility, I don't know. I know you need it. We don't live on Park Drive. We did not go to that meeting. We live on Overlook Terrace. So maybe it was just the Park Drive people that were notified. I think that's all I have to say. But the mooring field, absolutely. It has accountability is what I feel. Now we have somebody, if a boat does damage, we know they have insurance. The boats that are out there for many, many years, no accountability. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments.
Oh, I have one more thing.
I don't think we started the timer anyway.
For years, I went to those NAC meetings asking about the mooring field, and I always got the same answer from Susan Corey's. That's not our problem. That's not our NAC. I said, but we live in the CRA and it affects us. Well, that's not ours. When they were going to do Park Drive, I raised my hand and I said, aren't you going to put I heard that there was a facility going there. How are you going to redo Park Drive if you're already talking about, there's plans for a facility there. Don't you have to coordinate that? Well, that's not our thing. She was right. She said she did always say it's not an NAC. I could never understand that. If it's a county, it's a county. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we have a light on now. Any more public comment for the record? Commissioner Campy.
In regards to the mooring field, I remember early in my career, it was a Jensen Beach issue, and when people were frustrated that Commissioner Smith was looking to have a mooring field up there, everyone said the more logical place was in the Manatee Pocket, that it shouldn't be in Jensen, but it came to Jensen first, and then afterwards it came to the Manatee Pocket. I don't have a boat, never did, I don't have a dinghy, I've never moored to one of those mooring balls, I've never brought supplies to a boat. I have no idea. This next topic I could talk about, but this one with the boating, but I appreciate from someone who lives directly right there that there was an advantage to doing these things. And what I do remember as a land person is the fact that we could not even supervise or police, if you will, the derelict boats or the near derelict boats that were just camping out, for lack of whatever the word is, when you anchor your boat wherever you feel like it. The state did not give us the authority to police those areas because we did not have a mooring field. So beyond the folks like the last speaker just said that do show up and have some accountability to the people that live in that area, it also allows our law enforcement and state law enforcement to police the area. Am I wrong? Is that a situation where you can't just dock your boat wherever you feel like it now? They could in the past because we didn't have mooring fields, and now that we do, we can police that specific area. Again, not a maritime law expert, Mr. Pine. I know you're getting upset. I'm just giving you my history of the issue.
Okay, with that,
Move staff's recommendation.
thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for staff's recommendation by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Jenkins absent. Thank you. Okay, we are moving on now, a little bit out of order still, but we're going to take public hearing number 2, legislative public hearing to consider adoption of the comprehensive plan amendment, CPA 22-11, Three Lakes Golf Club, presented by Clyde Doolin.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Clyde Doolin. This is CPA number 22-11, Three Lakes Golf Club, LLC. This is a proposed future land use map amendment on 1,200 acres. The proposed change is from agricultural to rural lifestyle. The agricultural future land use designation is shown on the map in green. The property is outlined in red on the map. It's on both sides of Canner Highway, and it's north of Bridge Road. It's south of the intersection of Canner Highway and Pratt Whitney. The next slide, or the next photo on the screen, shows the proposed future land use designation, rural lifestyle. This is the third of 3 public hearings. The local planning agency considered this on November 2. The Board of County Commissioners considered this on November 7 and approved transmittal of it to the state. State came back with no comments or objections, and this is the adoption public hearing scheduled for February 20. Notices have been published in the newspaper, and when the applicant comes up to do his presentation, he'll bring an affidavit showing that the letters have been sent out to all the surrounding property owners within 2,500 feet. As I said, this is a proposed change from agricultural, allowing 1 unit per 20 acres, to rural lifestyle, also allowing 1 unit per 20 acres. There's no change in density. Both this land use designation proposed and the existing land use designation allow for golf courses. Staff finds that it meets compatibility considerations with surrounding property because they both allow some of the same uses. The proposed land use will require more open space, 70%, as opposed to the 50% allowed by the agricultural future land use designation. Staff finds that 2 of the 4 criteria that staff must consider whenever reviewing future land use map amendments have been met. Sprawl criteria have also been considered and met, And staff recommends approval of the proposed change. There have been changes in development in the area. There have been changes in future land use designations in the area. And before I end the staff presentation, I wanted to cover a few things that perhaps some folks don't know when we're doing future land use map amendments. We consider the worst-case scenario of the proposed land use and the worst-case scenario of the existing land use. We don't look at a minimal use of the existing future land use designation. So if, for instance, there's only a few cows on a property or a few trees on the property, it's very lightly used within its existing land use. We're not looking at that. We're looking at the most intense use that the agricultural future land use could have on it. Golf courses, golf cottages, et cetera, and compare that to the proposed use for a side-by-side comparison to some extent. And as I said, golf courses are permitted in both. Also, one of the things that we consider when we were looking at the rural lifestyle future land use designation is that the existing agricultural future land use designation allows for 20-acre lots, large lots, subdivisions that are very large, where the individual lots can obtain an ag tax classification and reduce their tax burden while still demanding public services to be provided. The rural lifestyle future land use designation will make that very difficult to obtain agricultural tax classification on properties, on the individual lots that it would be developed and the individual houses that would be there. So we could expect a better tax return for the services provided and not put a burden on the residents in the rest of Martin County. Also, I wanted to point out that as you heard from your legislative presentation this morning, the state is working at additional changes in legislation that affect local governments. One of the changes that affected local government is the agritourism that was adopted a few years ago and then allows for expanded uses in the agricultural areas than have been allowed in the past. Palm Beach County recently had a bit of a dust-up where people in the acreage were setting up wedding venues and using the agritourism as their means of doing so. When Palm Beach County tried to stop those wedding venues from being used in those agricultural lands, they lost before the code enforcement magistrate because the state law superseded the local regulations. One of the advantages of the rural lifestyle future land use designation provides is a planned unit development, which makes an agreement between the Board of County Commissioners and the community, or that's being developed. And in so doing, it gives some predictability for how thousands of acres will be developed over many years into the future. So with that, I will end the staff presentation and recommend staff approval.
Thank you, Clyde. Questions for staff? Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah. Do you know where the Indian River Lagoon South Natural Lands footprint is?
I believe it's south of Bridge Road, but I can't give you the exact location.
Have you asked anyone to provide us with that information?
I have seen the data in the past, but I can't recall it at this moment.
Did you recall if the Colusa Creek Ranch project was inside the IRL South Natural Lands component?
I believe it is.
You didn't bring that up at the hearing. I believe I asked that question.
I don't remember that hearing. This is the Three Lakes on the north side of Bridge Road.
I'm aware of that. I'm just aware of what makes you so certain that this is not in the IRL South Natural Lands footprint. Because it certainly is next to it, if not included in it.
It may be next to it, Commissioner. I
It may
believe
be
it
in
is
it,
north.
too. Also, how many, what was the maximum allowable number of bedrooms for the golf cottages when it was originally proposed?
I believe it's 6.
I believe it was 4. When did that change?
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I was speaking of the adopted language.
I was speaking of the language also. It was a transmittal language, was 4.
Could you go to page 166, Carolyn? There you go. Actually, beyond that, we'll bring it up. 168. Bottom of the page. It's limited to 6 bedrooms, Commissioner.
Was this the transmitted language or the adopted language or something in between?
This is the adopted language.
Okay, I don't, I recall that it was 4. Those are the questions I have right now. That have been unsatisfactory answered.
Morris, you're going to do
Yes.
the
Good afternoon.
presentation? for the applicant?
Yes, for the record, my name is Morris Crady, Senior Partner with Lucido and Associates, and I'm here on behalf of the property owner, Three Lakes Golf Club, LLC. I do have the affidavit regarding the notice to surrounding property owners within 2,500 feet of the subject property. I did give a lengthy presentation regarding compliance with rural lifestyle, and as one of the persons that drafted the language, it's always been 6 bedrooms from day one. I think the criteria that Clyde went over applies to this property. It was transmitted for approval in November. The major change to the existing project, we currently have 2 golf courses approved on site and septic tank allowance for up to 5,000 gallons per day under the existing agricultural land use and zoning. The major change here is it allows connection to the water and sewer lines that are adjacent to the project. And it also allows us to submit this PUD master plan, which I'll go over in more detail on the next item, assuming this moves forward for adoption today. So with that understanding, I'll be glad to answer any questions, but if I can just reserve my presentation for the next item, I think that would save some time.
Anybody have questions for the applicant?
I don't.
No? Okay, going back to the board for some direction. Clyde, do you have a?
Commissioners, if I may interrupt for just a moment, I was given a graphic that I believe answers the question that was asked about the SERP boundary. You see on the screen a map of lands that have been acquired and that are proposed for acquisition. There's a green dashed outline that shows the SERP boundary, and I'll get up and show you. Here's the SERP boundary shown on the legend of the map. Carolyn, would you zoom in just a little bit? The property in question is north of Bridge Road, north of my finger. The SERP boundary is this green line running right along Bridge Road here. This is Canner Highway for your reference. So the property in question is on the north of the SERP boundary shown on this 2011 map.
Do you know if that's been modified since 2011? Because then natural lands weren't part of SERP.
At this moment, Commissioners, that's the data I have to show you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. This morning, we talked about allowing the public to decide about a 1/2 cent sales tax to purchase environmental lands that will be held in protective conservation and used for very passive, potentially very passive recreation, if at all. A lot of the property that's been purchased in the past has sat nearly untouched from anything. And we're talking about taxing, the residents are going to have to vote on taxing themselves to maintain large areas of green open space. It will come off the tax rolls, and we'd have to utilize our funds and try to hope for grant funds. Projects such as this allow thousands of acres to be utilized in a more, not as passive as nothing, but in my particular opinion, it is a nice marriage and creates another green buffer for us. Yes, it will have golf cottages, and it'll have the associated amenities that golf courses will bring, but it'll also have hundreds and hundreds of acres of natural land and revitalized lands. And I've had the opportunity in the past to tour this. Yes, if you're not interested in golf courses and things like that, then you're annoyed by this project. But I think not only from an environmental point of view is this sort of a balance of having something happen on people's property that still has a relatively minor effect, not zero, but a minor effect compared to the dozens of options that could have been used on this property. That being said, there is also an economic benefit to the residents. And I know some people say, well, you know, that doesn't really matter and it shouldn't be taken into the consideration, but it is. It is, in my mind, taken into the consideration. It'll bring a tremendous amount of tax revenue that will ease some of the burden that others would have to pay, if not these kind of projects. It's also a group that is in the process of building what will become a world-renowned facility. It's already been shown and published in magazines, both golf industry magazines and other magazines, talking about this particular project and several others that are coming to our area. And I have said in the past that, you know, Martin County is known for a lot of things, you know, acclaimed things. I don't think it's a bad idea at all if Martin County would continue to enhance our reputation as the premier location for golf. The folks that come to these facilities will either stay in these cottages, they will frequent restaurants, they will shop in retail stores. The course itself will hire hundreds and hundreds of employees at every level, from the greens maintenance folks and hospitality folks to management and engineers and the like. So I see this as a terrific benefit. The group that has gotten together to bring this project, having known something about golf and the industry itself, as my dad is a pro, is the top of the list, is top of the industry. The individuals that are owning the facility and the individuals that will run it and have planned it and organized it are as big as they get in the industry. And I'm thrilled that they've decided to pick a portion of Martin County to be here, and I'm honored to make the motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Yeah, one other component I would add to what Ed just had to say, and it's knowing that this was coming up this afternoon, the conversation this morning at Public about the discharges to this C-44 canal. We have talked, we have presentations we have done relative to this course, but even to the amendment as a whole as to how many millions of gallons a day it'll remove from the C-44, which, if you listen to folks this morning, they're, and rightfully so, they're crazed about the idea that there's going to be water heading out of the locks. And these projects will take a fair amount of water off that system. It won't take it all, but it'll certainly take a whole bunch of water out of the system that would otherwise go to the Indian River Lagoon and out to the out to the ocean and eventually out to the coral reef. So to what all Ed just said, the incredible benefits to the water piece of this in terms of how much water we're taking out of that canal, I think make it a perfectly good opportunity for us. I'll second your motion, Ed.
Commissioner Hurd?
Yeah, I'm not going to support the motion. There are 4 criteria for analysis for an amendment to the future land use amendment. They are: past changes in land use designations in the general area make the proposed use logical and consistent with these uses, and adequate public facilities are available. It has not met that. Growth in the area in terms of development of vacant land, redevelopment, and availability of public services has altered the character of the land of the area such that the proposed request is now reasonable and consistent with area land use characteristics. It hasn't met that criteria. The proposed change would correct what would otherwise appear to be an inappropriately assigned land use designation. It hasn't met that criteria. And lastly, the proposed change would fulfill a public service need that enhances the health, safety, or general welfare of county residents. So it hasn't met that criteria either. Furthermore, it's classic urban sprawl. It's incompatible with the land uses completely surrounding it, and there are no capital facilities available to be extended here. Furthermore, the comprehensive plan states that extension of water and sewer inside the primary urban service boundary is to be prioritized. This is wholly outside of any urban service boundary.
Commissioner Campy.
With all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Doolin, Ms. Grunwald, you heard what my colleague had to say. You've had the opportunity to review this, as did several other members of our organization, including legal. Do you feel that you are breaking any of those covenants or rules that you've just heard?
No, Commissioner. Staff did not find that the criteria in 3 and 4 had been met. Staff found that the first 2 criteria had been met, which Commissioner heard correctly itemized. As to the sprawl issue, it's not urban sprawl. It couldn't possibly be considered urban sprawl at 1 unit per 20 acres. However, if sprawl is it's like art, you know, different people have different opinions on it. It can be rather subjective. Likewise, you could consider the 20-acre lots in the large lot subdivisions to also be sprawl. And that type of sprawl is possible all over western Martin County. And we have some maps for instance, to show large lot subdivisions that are out by the lake, up by the north, by the county line in the St. Lucie County, that are requiring services for residential lots, residential units on 20-acre lots stretched far out. The rural lifestyle future land use designation must be located in proximity to the urban service districts. So unlike the large lot 20-acre subdivisions, it has to be close to the urban area. And so respectfully, staff recommends approval of this proposed land use change.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up?
No.
I'm just going to add my comments. I think that, Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Campy has reflected some of my comments, but just to tag on to what you just said, and I believe you said it in your earlier presentation, that you're basing this property on what the most intense use could be. So, and I've had a chance to tour this property, and I grew up in the corridor, so I spent much of my life going back and forth down Canner Highway. And quite honestly, I think there are many of us that would love to see Canner Highway never change, but it's obviously not realistic. And 2 things. There's one thing I would hate to see on this property is 20-acre ranchettes everywhere with ditches and dikes and manicured lawns and berms that does not have the environmental benefit of that Commissioner described, of Commissioner Smith, of taking the water from the C-44 and I have to say that one of the biggest concerns that I had when this project was originally proposed is I didn't want to change the character of Canner Highway. It's always been a rural highway, and it's beautiful, and it has a lot of history, and they have done just what they said they were going to do. They've kept it rural. They've kept it, and you can't even tell that the entrance is back there. And when you go inside the property, and I appreciate the tour, it has the most beautiful oak trees that they kept every oak tree, moved them around the property. It's probably the best environmental condition that property has seen in decades. And I love to see it, so I appreciate it. And again, I would hate to see 20-acre ranchettes all over this county. So I rather like this particular proposal and what they've done, and the fact that you've done what you said you're going to do and keeping it rural in nature. So with that, we had a motion.
Excuse me, Commissioner Hetherington, we need to ask for public comment.
Oh, okay, I thought we had done that. Any public comment on this item? Remember, I'm just a temporary. I'm a temp.
That's why I'm here.
Temp. Here's a public comment.
Public comment?
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am Len Susi, and I have been in Martin County 19 years now, and I've spent my life in economic development, And I've done over 2 million square feet of space. And I like this proposal very much. When I look at Martin County, I look at what is the growth actors in Martin County now, and I see healthcare being primary. I see, healthcare, manufacturing, especially in the marina area. I see recreation and tourism and life sciences. When I look at the sector of tourism, I see a significant increase in the activity in the Gulf area. And I look at the fact that this particular project is creating a critical mass of the concentration of golf activities here. And because of the critical mass and the way this project is structured, it has brought together more investment into this area, and we can see that already happening. I must say this is a very unique project. This is without houses. This is pure golf. As the commissioner said before, this is absolutely unique in the history of how golf courses are developed. It's only happened because one of the principals has done this very successfully before without making golf an ancillary activity of a project. And this is not ancillary, this is the project. And this will go down and as critical. I would say that because this project came forward, we have seen an additional $100 million in land purchases come in, which are supporting it. This year, these are Martin County assets receiving these monies. I think that we should want our industries and our growing industries to be successful. And we want all Martin County projects to be successful. And I would encourage you to do whatever is necessary to help this project be successful. And if it is successful, we are successful collectively. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, Commissioner Smith, do you have a comment?
Just one final thought. As people are thinking this through and listening to the various comments and the various opinions, this is Martin County taking control of its future and deciding what we want, what we don't want, versus some other entity in the state doing it for us. And I think with what our staff has helped us create with what this is and what the property owners have created as a result of what that looks like, it is a much better future for that piece of property and the other properties that are involved with this land use category than I'm afraid or concerned, very much so, with what might be dictated to us later on as time moves on. So I think for all of us, I think it's as good as it gets.
Thank you, Commissioner Smith. Okay, with that, we do have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 3-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting and Commissioner Jenkins absent. Okay, so we will move on now.
Thank you, members of the board.
Thank you, Clyde. To public hearing quasi judicial number 1, request for rezoning approval to plan unit development through a PUD zoning agreement for the Three Lakes Golf Club project, including a master and phasing plan and a Phase 1 final site plan, presented by Brian Elam. That was a mouthful. Good afternoon. Oh, quasi judicial. Okay. Do you have return receipts, that paperwork, and your resume?
I do.
You have your resume
Receipts were returned at the LP.
and receipts for return at the LPA. And Commissioner Smith, do you have any quasi judicial?
I do. They're filed.
Commissioner Campy?
I do, they've been filed.
Commissioner Hurd?
I don't think I have any, but if I do, they've been filed.
And if I have any, they have been filed. And will all of the, those providing testimony please stand up to be sworn in?
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
No interveners.
All right, with that, Brian, you may proceed.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, Brian Elam, Principal Planner with the Growth Management Department. I've submitted a copy of the agenda item in my work history as Exhibit 1, and the applicant's work history is an attachment to this agenda item and has been identified as Exhibit 2. This is a request by Three Lakes Golf Club, LLC, also known as Apogee, for a zoning district change from the current AG 20A General Agricultural District to the Planned Unit Development, or PUD district, through a PUD zoning agreement including a master plan, phasing plan, and Phase 1 final site plan. Included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities reservation. The development is located west and east of Southwest Cantor Highway, approximately 2.4 miles southwest of I-95 at 10980 Southwest Apogee Drive in Stewart. The Comprehensive Plan Amendment 22-11 heard before this board today approved the requested change to the future land use on the property from agricultural, allowing 1 unit per 20 acres, to rural lifestyle, allowing 1 unit per 20 acres on approximately 1,217 acres. This application is a request for a planned unit development zoning district, which is an alternative zoning district in which the landowner and the Board of County Commissioners negotiate standards that will apply to a specific parcel of land such that the resulting development will be of superior quality and design while protecting the health, safety, and welfare of the general public. The purpose of a planned unit development is to provide flexibility in design with respect to applying the land development regulations in a manner which mutually benefits the county and the developer, but must adhere to all comprehensive growth management plan goals and policies. The master site plan is designed for 3 18-hole golf courses, 2 9-hole short courses, 2 driving ranges, 54 golf cottages, east and west clubhouses, a 70-bed employee housing unit, and ancillary buildings in support of the golf club members and operations. Approximately 722 acres is east of Southwest Cantor Highway, and this is the area where the north and south 18-hole golf courses are located. The remaining approximate 494 acres lies west of Southwest Cantor Highway, and this is where the west 18-hole golf course is located, as well as the required upland preserve of pine flatlands that is to be preserved and maintained by a PAMP, Preserve Area Management Plan, by Three Lakes Golf Club PUD. An amendment to the approved PAMP is part of this agenda item. The PAMP amendment has been completed to document the reconfiguration of native upland preserve areas on the subject property. The reconfiguration replaces areas of native upland habitat where development is proposed with preservation of equivalent areas of existing native upland habitat. The master site plan includes over 170 acres of constructed lakes, 57 acres of wetland preserve, over 48 acres of wetland buffer preserve, and 97% open space. The master site plan incorporates the previously approved Three Lakes Golf Club revised final site plan passed by the board on June 6, 2023. A resolution has been made part of this agenda item to rename the Three Lakes Golf Club revised final site plan as the Three Lakes Golf Club PUD Phase 1 final site plan. Access to the site will remain consistent with the previously approved revised final site plan, with the main entrance off Southwest Bridge Road for the area east of Southwest Cantor Highway and secondary access points on Southwest Cantor Highway. If I can zoom in. So this was previously approved, the main access here, and secondary access is here along Cantor Highway. Master site plan shows the, the proposed development will be completed in 3 phases, as detailed on the master site plan and phasing plan. Phase 1 is currently under construction, and that's the site plan for which the construction is going off of right now, and it'll be renamed as the PUD Phase 1 final site plan. Phase 2 is in review, and Phase 3 is off into the future. As previously stated, the purpose of a planned unit development is to provide flexibility in design with respect to applying the land development regulations in a manner which mutually benefits the county and the developer. As the applicant's primary, aside from meeting the minimum PUD agreement public benefits required for the rural lifestyle future land use, the applicant has also proposed the following. The owner shall partner with the county and the Martin County Orchid Society by contributing $30,000 towards the protection and relocation of a state-listed terrestrial orchid. The funds will also be used to establish an orchid seed bank to propagate orchids that are native to the county, where they will be used to enhance local orchid populations on county-owned property. I believe there's a potential that where they have to do a turn lane on the main entrance. That Bridge Road? Thank you. On Bridge Road, that the orchid may be there. So I don't even think that it's proven to be there, but
What orchid is it?
it is the Sequoia lanceolata. It's very pretty. It's in the vicinity, but it's.
I wanted you to say it. Close enough.
I'm sure I've probably butchered that. The Three Lakes PUD provides private recreational uses. The second public benefit is upon completion of the North Golf Course and permanent golf clubhouse, these events shall include a minimum of 3 charity golf outages each year during the peak golf season, October through May, including the use of golf course and clubhouse facilities at no cost, and the donation of food and non-alcoholic beverages during the event. Each golf outing shall be limited to a maximum of 72 golfers. There are other benefits, which the applicant, I'm sure, will explain, which are part of the rural lifestyle requirement. This application was heard before the local planning agency on February 15th, 2024, and the LPA's recommendation will be forwarded. It was passed 3-1? 3-1. Development review staff have found the PUD zoning agreement and master site plan to comply with all applicable regulations, and the comprehensive growth management plan is detailed in the attached staff report. Staff recommends approval of the Three Lakes Golf Club PUD zoning agreement application. We recommend the board receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report, as Exhibit 1. Move the board receive and file the applicant's work history as Exhibit 2. And move the board adopt the resolution approving the rezoning from AG 28 General Agricultural District to Planned Unit Development, and approve the Three Lakes Golf Club PUD zoning agreement, including the master site plan, phasing plan, Phase 1 final site plan, and revised preserve area management plan. And that concludes the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone have questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Bob Raines. I'm a land use attorney with the Gunster Law Firm, and I'm here this afternoon on behalf of the applicant. And very pleased to be here on what we believe is a really wonderful project for Martin County. We're pleased to state for the record, first of all, that we did turn in the return receipts, proof of notices to the surrounding property owners at the LPA meeting for this item. So I'd like the record to reflect that. Also, I'd like for the record to reflect that we have received and reviewed the staff report. We agree with the staff comments, conclusions, and recommendations in that staff report, and are pleased to be here today to provide further evidence as to why this project should be approved. As was stated earlier, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so I'm going to have Mr. Crady come up in just a moment as a witness. We also have other members of our development team here and members of the Three Lake project here as well. So at the conclusion of our presentation, we'll be glad to answer any questions you might have with respect to the project. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Crady to come up. I have a few quick questions for him, then I'll turn it over to him, and then I'll have a few quick questions for him again. Mr. Crady, could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Morris Crady.
And you've been sworn in?
I have been sworn in.
And can you give us just a quick summary of your work history?
Sure.
and education?
Yep, I moved here in 1978, went to school at FIT in Jensen Beach, graduated in 1982, went to work for Martin County as their first environmental planner. And then I've been with, I resigned in 1990, been with Lucido and Associates, doing land planning in Martin County for now 42 years.
Okay, and can you identify the document that I'm handing you?
Yes, that's my resume.
Okay, and I'd like for the record to reflect that Mr. Crady's identified his resume that I turned in as part of our applicant's exhibit work history that Mr. Elam referred to earlier, so that's already part of the packet. And Mr. Crady, can you just describe your role in this project?
Yes, I coordinated the development application submittal to Martin County and also coordinated the development team in responding to comments through the development review process.
Okay, and did you prepare the presentation you're about to show?
Yes, I did.
All right, thank you. Go right ahead.
And before I get into that, I just want to thank you guys for pushing the referendum this morning. I got here, like I said, in 1982, and there was a Save Our Beaches referendum during that time, and we ended up buying more than 25% of the frontage on Hudson Island, which went very well, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that. But I calculated there was more than 10,000 units removed from the primary and secondary urban service units by acquiring public lands over the years, and environmentally sensitive lands. So we're rezoning from AG 20A to PUD, and again, the rural lifestyle allows us to do that, and it also allows us to connect to water and sewer. But let me give you a brief timeline. In October 2022, we obtained the initial final site plan approval, and I can say even a year before that, Tommy Fazio and some of the development team were root pruning the trees that were planted by Mr. Kenna years ago to anticipate approval and start moving those trees around. But we commenced construction in November of 2022. And then we came back and modified the site plan a little bit. In June of 2023, revised the site plan, moved some lakes around in an attempt to save some trees, and I'll go over that in a moment. As mentioned, the rural lifestyle was approved for transmittal in November. Thank you for adopting it today. And we actually have completed the first golf course, which is on the west side. So you know where the project located. The South Florida Gateway Industrial Park is right here. That's where we're accessing the Urban Service District. Water and sewer lines are built along Kenner Highway, so we're directly adjacent to those water and sewer lines, and that's will allow us to remove this, to not build the septic tanks that were approved under the current application. This is a more recent aerial photograph that shows when we started construction. This was, I think, early 2023. This is the west course under development. You can also see the South Florida Gateway project that's under development, and it has now been completed. At least several of the buildings have been completed, and I'll go into exactly how that affects our property. But the approved projects are the two 18-hole golf courses on 1,216 acres. We renovated an existing home, the Kenna House, and I'll go more into that in a moment, that is being used as a founder's residence and temporary event center. The access on Kenner Highway and Bridge Road was approved, and we also had approval of the West Golf Course Maintenance Building and golf shelters. And then we came in with the revised final site plan, and we got the permanent clubhouse and parking on the west course approved. There's 14 cottage buildings that have been approved and are under construction, and that's when the utility waiver was approved for up to 5,000 gallons, and we do have an approved preserve area management plan for the entire project area. So this is the existing approved golf club, and again, this is the cottages, the clubhouse, more cottages. This is the Kenna House and temporary parking that was approved. And on the east side of the road, we have the second, what we call the South Golf Course. The first golf course was designed by Gil Hans, and Fazio Davis designed the South Course, and that's under construction. But the West Course now and the maintenance building are all nearing completion. We're utilizing the Kenna House as a temporary facility, and the clubhouse is under construction as well as the cottages on both sides. What the rural lifestyle allows us to do is connect to Martin County utilities, and under that provision, The developers have to pay for not only extending the lines from their existing location to the site, but also maintaining those lines in perpetuity. So there's no cost to existing taxpayers. And our use is rather minimal because we have no homes. There's no homes on this site, so we're only trying to provide service to the existing clubhouse facilities and the future facilities. The master plan also allows us to propose additional recreation amenities, private facilities, pool, fitness, and spa facilities on the west side, golf training center on the west side, tennis and pickleball courts on the west side, and up to 54 golf cottages that will be located on both sides of Canner Highway. And this also allows the construction of the third 18-hole golf course, which we're calling the North Course, and employee housing for up to 70 beds on the east side, which is directly across from the industrial park. The east also allows us to construct an east golf clubhouse and performance center and facilities on the east side of Canner Highway to service the north and the south course. So this is, again, is the approved plan. I'll just gently bleed into the proposed plan. You'll see that this area here is now consumed by the third golf course. We have a maintenance facility and additional cottages to it. So this is the master plan rendering showing the additional facilities. If I just focus in on the west side of the road, you can see we're still maintaining this existing right-of-way is 250 foot of land that is controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers. We've been working with them to remove exotic vegetation in that area and also restore that area, which is one of our public benefits that I'll go into in a moment. But you can see the golf cottages that we're adding. We're trying to situate those within the existing vegetation so that they're low profile, low key. This is the tennis and pickleball courts. We're adding a swim and spa club in this location. Clubhouse is not changing. Cottages on either side of the clubhouse is not changing. Down in the south end of the property, the maintenance facility was approved with the initial project. It's nearing completion. And we have this practice area is what they call a wee course for children to learn and practice. And there's also a future short course along Canner Highway in this location, additional golf cottages. And then on the other side of the road, this is the third golf course. The employee housing is proposed across the street from the industrial park. We're building an additional 40 acres of lakes and an additional maintenance facility on the east side of Canner Highway, and additional cottages around the clubhouse. And this is the 360 practice range that was approved with the original application, and the performance center that will add to that facility is part of the master plan that's being added. And really, we were restricted before because we could only do stuff or build facilities that were limited by the 5,000 gallon per day septic tank allowance. This allows the existing clubhouse and the existing cottages to be utilized at maximum potential and by connection to water and sewer. Again, this is the approved plan, and just so it's clear, everything that's been approved is now called Phase 1, and this is a condition in the PUD that all the elements in Phase 1 remain the same in full force and effect, except as changed by the PUD master plan. And the major change to those facilities is allowing connection to water and sewer and allowing them to be utilized to their full potential. The project features, though, remain the same. We're still taking nutrient-laden water from the St. Lucie Canal that would normally be discharged into the North Fork of the St. Lucie, or the South Fork of the St. Lucie River. We're pumping that and storing it on the 170 acres of lakes on site to irrigate the golf course and other landscape areas. We're recycling and reusing approximately 4.5 million gallons of water today that would normally be discharged into the South Fork. And because we have that water, we don't have to dig irrigation wells, and we're providing enhanced water quality treatment with the golf course lakes and the stormwater treatment areas on site that protects the aquifer that we use for potable water and also protects our wetlands that we're preserving on site. We're committed to the native landscape buffers along Bridge Road and Canner Highway to maintain the rural character along the frontage of these roads. That's part of the rural lifestyle intent, and And sure, if you've been by there, you won't even know there's a golf course behind all that vegetation. But we've been locating thousands of native trees and vegetation on site, not just trees either. We're locating saw palm meadow, wax myrtles, native grasses. Everything that could not be worked around has been moved in between the golf course fairways or along the perimeter of the site, and also within the Army Corps right-of-way to enhance wildlife utilization and habitat value. I'll talk about the Kenna House in a moment, but one of the things they were doing was managing this as a hunting preserve. And that did protect the environment, even though they were hunting, but we are going to discontinue hunting as part of this application, so the enhanced wildlife habitat will continue exponentially, actually, because of the additional public benefits that we're providing. We're creating wildlife corridor along the St. Lucie Canal by the removal of exotic plants and relocation of native trees within this 250-foot wide corridor. So we have a corridor along the St. Lucie Canal that is adjacent to our golf course that provides critical habitat for wildlife. We're exceeding the minimum open space required by rural lifestyle by over 330 acres. The minimum requirement is 70%. We're providing 97% open space, which is 1,180 acres out of our total 1,216 acres is going to be open space in the form of upland and wetland preserve areas, in the form of the golf course areas, the areas between the golf course, which is, you'll see in a moment, is being restored to native habitat, and also the perimeter buffers that we're providing in lakes. We may have a commitment, a PUD special condition, committing to comply with the International Dark Sky Program, which is intended to minimize the light pollution coming from the site. So there are going to be activities where the members and their children can enjoy viewing the sky, which is much more possible by controlling the light pollution. We also are committing to utilizing electric vehicles for maintenance equipment, shuttle services, electric pumps that's pumping the water out of the canal. We're again, our on-site stormwater management system, over 170 acres of lakes, is designed to reduce the harmful discharges to the estuary. We're also proposing or allowing the use of the golf course and club facilities at no cost to local charities for up to 3 golf outings during the peak golf season, and that's critical because most of the charity events that we have occur during the summer when there's no members on the course. So the owners believe that this is a tremendous benefit that could generate a lot of contribution to local charities and community foundations. We're also donating the 30,000 square foot to Martin County to work with the Martin County Orchid Society to relocate and provide a seeding program for the orchid that occurs along the Bridge Road public right-of-way, and that will be done in the county parks. This is the Kenna House that we are that has been renovated and is being used as an event center. And at this point, I got to give and credit to the owners because they're preserving this house in perpetuity. And it's not exactly the architecture that we're proposing. This is the classical Meisner Mediterranean revival architecture. But Mr. Kenna built this house with quality materials in 2010, and it's just it's a tribute to him and his family for maintaining this land and their stewardship of this land. This land could have easily, under the agricultural land use and zoning, been clear cut, and it could have been citrus, it could have been crops, it could have been pasture, but we were able to preserve and well, through the Kenna stewardship, and before them it was the Phipps family. We're able to work around the designers, the golf course designers, work around some of the mature pine trees and oaks. Every gnarly pine that was out there, because we were working with 500 acres on this side of the road and no homes, the designer was able to work around the iconic trees, and not just the pine trees, but several oaks that are between 50 and 100 years old. All of these areas between the golf fairways have trees, and they didn't qualify as preserved because the understory was removed as part of the hunting management, but we're going to allow that to the native plants to recruit themselves, and we also have located tons of material within and between the fairways to create these native areas. Again, every stand of palm trees, cabbage palm trees, oaks, again, were either worked around or if they were larger, if they were able to move them, and they were relocated to areas along the perimeter of the site or between the golf fairways. This is an example of this is the edge of our golf course, and then there's 250 feet of land between the golf course and the St. Lucie Canal. And there is a berm along here that contains all of our water. Nothing can get to the St. Lucie Canal from the golf course. It's all funneled through our lake system with very little discharge. Even after all the rains that we've had over the past El Nino winter, no water has been discharged off this site at all. And it's all been retained on site, allowed to settle in the lakes, to filter into the groundwater table after going through our lake system. This is an example of a perimeter berm that had nothing in it before, but it's hard to see in this photo. But as I said before, palmettos have been relocated, wax myrtles, the small pine trees, just about every cabbage palm. There was not one cabbage palm destroyed during the construction of this project. Every palm that couldn't be saved, and there's these palms out here are up to 60, 70 feet tall. A lot of this land has never been harvested. There's no, the Kennas and the Phipps kept it in its natural condition as much as they could, and the glory of rural lifestyle is this is exactly what it was intended to do. As I mentioned, all of this could be clear-cut under the existing agricultural land use and the ag zoning. And they could put citrus, they could do whatever they want out here under the agricultural land use, but now it's controlled by rural lifestyle and further controlled by the PUD. And the owners and the designers and our engineers have done everything possible to carve a golf course around these sensitive areas, and even our lakes. When we came in here with the revised final site plan in 2023, one of the changes that we made was redesigning the lakes to work around a lot of these native areas and relocate as many palms and as many oak trees. These are all trees that have been relocated. The Kennas planted thousands of pine trees and oak trees that just fit perfectly within within the design parameters of the owners. And you can see these are all relocated oak trees that have been. This is on the east side of Canner Highway, and the south golf course is about 50% complete, but they're constantly moving plant material on a daily basis. The owners appreciated and respected the value of the trees and the native habitat. They hired their own equipment, tree spades. They hired their own employees. They did not leave this delicate relocation of plant material up to subcontractors. They did it all themselves, and Tommy Fazio, I believe, was there at every step of the way, making sure that it was done correctly and appropriately. We even worked hard with the engineering department. We had some issues at the beginning about leaving some of these trees on these ditches. There's a lot of agricultural ditches on site, and the ditches didn't meet current standards as far as slopes. So we worked with the engineering department to let us leave some of these ditches in their existing conditions because of the oak trees and other vegetation that was growing on the slope. And you can see, again, where there was a stand of oak trees or palm trees, we carved the lakes around those areas to save those trees. And this is just an example that you can see all throughout the west course where the designers and the golf course architect worked hard to save as much of the existing vegetation on site as possible. And what couldn't be saved was relocated on site, either on this side or relocated on the east side of Canner Highway. I'm going to end it again with the Kenna residents, because without them, the property would not have been in a condition that allowed a design of this nature. Like I said before, they could have developed this site. It could be 20-acre ranches with none of this, or it could have been citrus, or it could have been row crops, or even pasture. And all of these trees that we saved and worked around and relocated would not have been possible without the stewardship of the Kenna family and before them, the Phipps family. So I think it's a great sequence that now we have the current owners respecting the land as much as the former owners. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
So just a couple of quick questions for Mr. Crady before he answers any other questions you all might have. Mr. Crady, you're familiar with the Martin County Land Development Regulations and the Martin County Comprehensive Plan?
Yes.
And in your professional opinion, does this project meet both those land development regulations and the comprehensive plan of Martin County?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. So Commissioners, that concludes our presentation. As I mentioned earlier, we have consultants from the rest of the development team here. Representatives of Three Lakes / Apogee are also here. And we would respectfully request that you accept staff's recommendation and approve the PUD and master site plan final before you today.
Thank you. Commissioner Camping.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raines and Mr. Crady. Appreciate that. I think it gives people an opportunity sort of look behind the perimeter of the property along Canner. I think what Commissioner Hetherington said earlier about everyone's hope that the corridor that is Canner Highway can start to maintain and just keep some of its initial look. If you weren't paying attention as you drove past your site, you wouldn't notice, other than a very small marquee sign. I've had the opportunity to hear about this. Our staff has. I appreciate staff's work on this. You know, this is new for us, these kind of projects that are, someone said it's all golf, no houses. And most projects throughout the history of Florida it's the houses and then it's the golf as an amenity. And so I think this is unique for us. One of the things that when I had an opportunity to speak to very, very early on when this was still completely conceptual, one of the owners, who happens to be just a delight of a person, said to me, he goes, I think what we're going to do is we're going to open up the property a couple times a year for not-for-profits to be able to bring their golfers, their people, to play. And having been involved, all of us have, in so many not-for-profits, so many golf outings, that is a remarkably generous offer. Because especially on something like this, no one will, not no one, but the average person on a daily basis won't have the opportunity to play on a facility that is designed in such a way and cared for in such a way that it will be a golfing dream come true for golfers. So imagine the not-for-profits that will get to have an opportunity to say that they're going, the Children's Museum is sitting behind you, and they're chomping at the bit to be one of the first people to sign up. But that being said, one of the things that was mentioned by staff, and then I was waiting to hear if the applicant in their presentation was going to say it again, most often, when a not-for-profit is fortunate enough to have the ability to site a golf tournament or a golf outing on a golf course, they still pay for the food, they still pay for the beverages, and sometimes they have to pay for staffing or whatever else. The offer that I had heard, at least mentioned 2 times, was food and beverage. That is the biggest benefit for a not-for-profit, because most of the time, by the time you pay for the outing, there's not a tremendous amount of profit left. So that is remarkable. And so with that, I would say that I think that this project brings a huge environmental benefit to us, an economic benefit to us, and a philanthropic benefit to us that I, on behalf of myself, would tell you, thank you very much. I could continue to gush on about it. This is but I won't. This is the type of project that even folks that are nervous and disappointed and potentially angry of development happening in Martin County, there should be and I'm sure one of my colleagues will find something to say about it, but I personally think we're fortunate to have you. And so I will make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Oh, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I'll say it again, and again, I'm seemingly following Ed on all these agenda items today, which is actually good, because he says a lot, and I don't have to say that much to say.
I push the button on purpose.
So much of this is about choice, and it's about the future of Martin County, and what was this land, what could it have been, what is it, and what is it going to be, how is it managed, how is it taken care of. If I were presenting this to an organization that wanted to know what is Martin County doing about the environment, we as a county, we talked about sales tax this morning. We might be able to raise enough money to acquire a piece of land like this, but we would never, ever be able to conceivably spend the amount of money restoring it, rebuilding it, tying in the hydrology to the canal. It would never happen this way. And so again, from a choice of how does 1,278, right, 1,217? How does 1,217 acres in the grand scheme of the environmental strategy of Martin County turn out? I don't know that you could get anything better than what this offers us as a community, as a long-range plan for the land. It's not that the Kennas didn't take care of the land. They did. I was out there a long, long time ago with the owners. But the opportunity to significantly enhance the environmental prospects of this land is really something, and you guys have done an amazing job doing it. And again, thank you, and I will second Ed's motion.
Great. And with that, I'm going to take public comment, but I'm going to just chime in my thoughts that I actually will just summarize, because you both said precisely what I was thinking, and I like the economic, environmental, philanthropic.
I'm here for
It's the EEP. It's and I'll just echo what I said at the previous hearing. I think the environmental benefit of this being constructed the way it is, and I appreciate you showing some of those trees to give people the vantage point that have not been able to see it. It's pretty amazing. So with that, I'm going to take public comment. Anybody in the gallery wishing to make public comment? Seeing none, I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 3-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting and Commissioner Jenkins absent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, we are going to take a very brief 10-minute break at 3:24, and we'll be back at 3:35.
Good time.
You're on.
Okay, welcome back to our February 20th Board of County Commissioners meeting, and I am Commissioner Hetherington sitting in for Commissioner Jenkins today, and I know he wished he could join us today. We are going to continue with public hearing number 1, public hearing to consider adoption of the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan, CPA 22-09, Chapter 18, Community Redevelopment Element, Chapter 4, and Chapter 2, text presented by Pete Walden and Susan Corris.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon. Peter Walden, Deputy Growth Management Director, and I appreciate the board's time this afternoon. You've already seen this agenda item on December 12th. We had a hiccup in our process and didn't get to the state in time, so I have to bring it back and ask you to take a quick look at it again. But we made minor changes to Chapter 18 regarding density language. We clarified it, so one of the main things was that you can exceed 15 units per acre on your land. We did some open space changes to create more specificity in how you apply open space. And we also tightened preserve area requirements and lessened the amount of area that you can mitigate. I'll be glad to go back through the Chapter 18 changes if anybody needs to. Other than that, staff recommends approval. And the Article 12 sister component to this is already on its way, and that's already been facilitated.
It's effective.
It's effective, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of staff? Then we'll just look, public comment? Anybody have any public comment on this item? Commissioner Smith.
Move staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, seeing no public comment, Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah, I'm not going to support the motion in part because a development within a CRA may meet its obligation to provide open space by utilizing green building and infrastructure practices. That's not a good practice. Development within a CRA may also meet its obligation to preserve native upland habitat on the development site by making a cash payment in lieu of preserving. In addition, the buffers and transitions between different development intensities provided by policies 2 and 4, chapters 2, 4, and 9 shall not apply in any CRA land use designations. We should be making those requirements stricter inside the CRAs, not less strict.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other lights and comments, Commissioner Smith had a motion for staff's recommendation, and Commissioner Campy seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 3-1 with Commissioner Hurd dissenting and Commissioner Jenkins absent. Thank you very much. Okay, that went so fast. Okay, so we're moving on to departmental quasi judicial number 1, request Phase 2 plat approval for the Highpoint planned unit development, and that will be presented by Brian Elam. And Mr. Elam, do you have your resume?
Yes.
I'm going to submit that for the record. Have all the required return receipts been turned in?
None required.
Unrequired, and there's no interveners. And quasi judicial, Commissioner Smith.
If I have them in file.
Commissioner Campy.
If I have any, they've been filed.
Commissioner Hurd.
I don't have any, they've been filed.
If any of mine have been filed, and will anybody provide testimony, please stand up to.
Raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Go ahead and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. For the record, Brian Elam, Principal Planner with Growth Management. This is an application by the Pulte Home Company, LLC, for approval of the Highpoint PUD Phase 2 plat, which includes 190 residential lots on approximately 145 acres. The Highpoint project is located on the east side of Southwest Pratt Whitney Road, north of Southwest Bulldog Way at 10205 Southwest Pratt Whitney Road in Stewart. Included with this application is a request for a certificate of public facilities exemption. During review of the plat, staff and the applicant found inconsistencies between the proposed plat and the approved Phase 2 final site plan. Per Article 10, minor technical adjustments to an approved final site plan that are consistent with all applicable regulations may be processed with the plat application. As such, this agenda item has a resolution to approve a revised Phase 2 final site plan for the Highpoint PUD. The plat is consistent with the revised Phase 2 final site plan. The agenda item includes the approval and release of drainage, access, and utility easements, partial release of a corrective utility easement, and an escrow agreement and utility easement from Christ Fellowship Church Incorporated and Pulte Home Company, LLC, that the county will hold as a condition of approval of the Highpoint PUD Phase 2 plat. For Article 10 of the LDR's review of plats is not required by the LPA. Development review staff have found the plat application complies with all applicable regulations in the comp plan as detailed in the staff report, and staff recommends approval of the Highpoint PUD Phase 2 plat application. Staff recommends the board receive and file the agenda item and its attachments, including the staff report, as Exhibit 1. Move the board approve the Highpoint PUD Phase 2 plat and revised Phase 2 final site plan, including the contract for construction of required improvements in infrastructure. Move that the board adopt a resolution accepting and approving a non-exclusive flow-through drainage and access easement and a utility easement from the Highpoint Property Owners Association Incorporated, a Florida not-for-profit corporation, as a condition of approval of the Highpoint PUD Phase 2 plat, and an escrow agreement and utility easement from Christ Fellowship Church Incorporated, a Florida not-for-profit corporation, and Pulte Home Company, LLC, a Michigan limited liability company, as a condition of approval of the Highpoint PUD Phase 2 plat. And release of a corrective, non-exclusive flow-through drainage and access easement and a non-exclusive flow-through drainage easement and access easement, rescinding Resolution 15-5.9, and partial release of a corrective utility easement, and authorize the chairman to sign any and all documents necessary to complete the transaction. And that concludes the presentation. Take any questions.
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Mr. Elam did a great job presenting the material. Really nothing new to add to it. Be happy to answer any questions you may have. We're in favor of staff's recommendation of approval. Thank you very much.
And just state your name for the record.
Daniel Sara with the land planning firm of Kotler and Herring. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody wish to make public comment on this item? Seeing none, comes back to the board. Commissioner Campy?
We've had lots of opportunities to review this project, and I've had the chance to see it as it's been progressing, and it's very pretty. It's well done. It's tucked in behind Christ Fellowship Church. I appreciate all of the benefits that Operation 300 has worked out in their relationship with Christ Fellowship and Pulte. I think it's a nice project that had a tremendous public benefit in regards to assisting with a permanent home for Operation 300 in Camp Valor. So I would accept and make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
Second, once again, following Ed's comment, there's a lot we could talk about this project, even from the inception when the original environmental clearing was done, and how much care and work went into that when we did the church originally. It was really, really something. And from what I recall, it was kind of this had nothing to do with Christ Fellowship, but it was really kind of a mess out there relative to the environmental issues, and they did a remarkable job. Their consultants did a great job on highlighting and fixing and a lot of handwork, and that has continued on through the process. And as Ed said, with Operation 300, for those of us who went to the event this year, it was nothing short of a miracle what they have been able to do as part of as their entire existence, and to put on an event that they did on the site that you all helped carve out and create the opportunity for them to be able to do that. Actually, no, sorry, that was last year. This year, there was at, anyway. Huh?
Keep going, you're fine.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. I got confused with the year before, but the event itself really did show how much support and how much commitment the two organizations have put together to allow Operation 300 to really flourish in the way that they are. So great stuff, great work, and we appreciate it.
Was that also acting as a second?
Yes.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Campy, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Jenkins absent.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay. Okay, we are moving on to requests and presentations. We have a presentation and discussion with a request for the board direction regarding proposed plans for an addition to the lease area with the Children's Museum of the Treasure Coast, presented by Carla Segura.
Good afternoon.
Sorry.
Yeah, let me do mine. Let me get there. Good afternoon, Carla Segura, Real Property Manager. The Children's Museum of the Treasure Coast has requested to present a proposed future use of a portion of the property north of and adjacent to the property they currently lease from the county at Indian Riverside Park. Just as a little background, the Children's Museum has leased the building since 2005, and their lease term extends until August 9th, 2060. Should the board agree with the proposal is sufficient use of the added county property and doesn't interfere with any other county plans at the park, the Children's Museum will start working on raising funds and working with staff on an amendment to the lease. Today we have Richard Barron, who is the board president, and I think Tammy Calabria is here too.
Good afternoon. In the last 15 years of the Children's Museum's existence, over 750,000 people have come through the doors. We're pretty much maxed out in terms of our space for exhibits, and for future use expansions, we would like to extend our lease line to include this property north of the current building so that we may in the future build an addition that would include, I think, a great venue of a new planetarium as part of that operation. We would also free up space within the,
Carla, can you put that picture on the doc cam, please?
oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was.
We don't see it.
How do I do? Oh, here we go. Did it come on?
There we go. So you can see our existing building is currently 12,000 square feet. The new building we're proposing will be approximately 6,000 on the second floor and 8,000 on the first floor, so a little more than doubling the size of what we have now. But this is the area that's outlined in red that we would like to have in our lease extension for future use to build this new building. And we look for the commission's direction on going about and amending that lease so that we may proceed to do that.
Anybody else wishing to make a presentation?
I'm sorry?
All right, Commissioner Smith.
26 years ago, give or take, there were a group of us who got together, really with the leadership of John Whitaker, that decided that the former FIT campus ought to become a park. I and others on the committee had no idea really where that would take us in the future. For those of you who can go back that far, this site housed classrooms, two-story building, and it was kind of a 1970s architecture. By the time we got to it, and by the time we got the referendum passed to, or the bond referendum passed to acquire the land, that building had gone completely into disarray. Vandals had taken every piece of copper, aluminum, anything that was in that building that had the slightest bit of value out of it. The old library, which sits right, would have sat where the old, where the retention pond is now, due west of the site, was also stripped clean. And we worked for years with the community to create a vision for the park that would ensure that it would be publicly accessible and publicly usable. We went and talked to everybody and anybody that would listen to us, and thankfully the Children's Museum came along and said, after a lot of conversation, we want to take on that site and we want to take on the old chapel building, which is the existing museum. A lot of time has passed. A lot of great things have happened. This is probably the most exciting idea that has come forward in the last 25 years relative to the enhancements to the park. The restoration of the mansion was certainly an enormous component. But that's looking sort of at a bird's eye view from the east, looking northwest, if you will.
Yes.
Through the property. The parking lot existing that you see that's hashed out there with the Children's Museum to the south, the existing site. So it's incredibly exciting. To be able to add this feature to the park, I think is something that none of us dreamed was even possible. It just wasn't like if you'd said to me 25 years ago, guess what, we're going to have a planetarium, but in the next 25 years, I'd go, I don't know. But I think the success and the vision that the Children's Museum has had is nothing short of amazing. And I would like to move that do you need us to direct you to move into
Yeah, to start working with them.
on putting an expansion to their lease together?
Yeah, an amendment.
An amendment? Then I would ask the board for that support to be able to allow our staff to start working with the Children's Museum to facilitate this.
A happy second.
Commissioner Hearn.
Yeah, I think that the Children's Museum has proved that they are one of our best partners. So I'm very happy to support this. And also, I want to say that I absolutely love the mid-century modern renderings, artistic renderings. Don't you just feel like George Jetson should be, in this rendering?
Who's George Jetson? I'm too young for that.
George isn't here, but Brett Wood, the architect, is that did this.
It's great. I really look forward to, and I think that putting a science museum and a planetarium is inspired. We will attract new kids, older kids, so a whole new group of kids will become patrons of this terrific museum, and congratulations, and I'm sure that you'll do well.
We look forward to it.
$10 million makes it the Herd Planetarium. Pretty sure.
Yep.
Is 10? Is that the magic number? Would 10 do it?
She
Not the
should
whole
add-
thing, but you could get your name on it for 10.
Get you the entranceway.
I would just like to echo that I think the additions, and I've taken my kids to the Children's Museum since they were, toddlers on up, and I think the additions that you're adding, just has no age limit. It's just, it's really amazing. I think it'll be an addition, and you have been a very good partner, so we appreciate what you're doing, and we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Jenkins absent.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a wonderful
Appreciate it.
afternoon.
Good luck.
Okay, we are moving on to departmental number 1. How did you know that? Office of Management and Budget items which require board approval. Stephanie Murley.
How do I get this?
No items here. We already did that.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Stephanie Murley, Director of OMB, here to present the OMB item for today. There are 11 items. The first 3 are for the FY26 through FY30 FDOT SCOP program, permission to apply. Item number 1 is for permission to apply for the Small County Outreach Program from FDOT for the Southeast Commerce Avenue Roadway Reconstruction and Improvement Project. This project will include roadway leveling, deep mill leveling, resurfacing, shoulder widening, drainage improvements, and safety improvements. We are requesting about $3.8 million, which requires a match of 1.2 to be programmed in the future CIP in the Roads Department. The next item is a permission to apply for the FDOT SCOP program for County Road A1A resurfacing and complete streets improvements projects. These improvements will include median lighting, landscaping, raised lighting, colored crosswalks with pedestrian refuge and shared lane markings. The grant is being requested for $3.5 million, and the local match will be programmed with the road CIP for approximately 1.1 in those out years.
Stephanie, just a moment. Commissioner Hurd?
I have to say, I will support this application for this grant, but I've looked at the plans and I don't like them, so it's going to require some tweaking.
Thank you. Our third item is a permission to apply for the SCOP grant for the County Road 726 Southwest Citrus Boulevard resurfacing and safety improvements project. The safety improvements will include bicycle lanes, center line and edge line audibles, and drainage improvements. The county is requesting about $3.3 million with approximately 1.1 match to be programmed within the road CIP in those out years. Item number 4 is a permission to accept the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, FDEP, amendment number 1 for the Bathtub Beach Sailfish Point Beach Renourishment Project. DEP is increasing the funding by approximately $1.4 million for the construction and monitoring of Bathtub Beach. It requires an additional $2.3 million, which is budgeted in the Bathtub Beach Sailfish Point CIP. Item number 5 is permission to accept the supplemental agreement number 2 for construction, engineering, and inspection CEI services for the Southeast Indian Street resurfacing and drainage project. This amendment increases the funding by $53,464, and it extends the term of the agreement from June 30th, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. Item number 6 is a permission to accept the Florida statewide response for opioid abatement funds. We are receiving a state allocation of approximately $1 million to support opioid abatement, which supports direct client services and diversion courts to implement opioid abatement efforts. I said opioid a lot there. No cash match is required, and just requires staff time to administer the program. Item number 7 is a permission to accept the FY24 mosquito control agreement from the state of Florida. This is to provide state funding in the amount of $61,116 to the Public Works Mosquito Control Division for the purchase of chemicals to be used for arthropod control. It requires no match. Number 8 is a permission to accept the Florida Department of Transportation Public Transportation Grant Hold Bay Extension at Witham Field. This is a grant award of $7,500 for the cost of designing the Hold Bay extension at the runway 12 end of taxiway Alpha. It requires a 50% match of $7,500 to come from the airport CIP. Number 9 is permission to accept the FDOT Public Transportation Grant Agreement for the rehabilitation of Taxi Lane B design. This is a grant award of $67,140 for the design of the rehabilitation of Taxi Lane Bravo. Local share in the amount of $19,260 is required, and that is budgeted within the airport CIP. Item number 10 is a permission to accept the FDOT Public Transportation Grant Agreement for the Witham Field Business Plan. This is a grant award of $200,000 for the planning of the airport business plan, which is an essential document for managing the general aviation airport. It requires a $50,000 match, which is budgeted in the airport CIP. And our last item is a permission to accept the substance abuse prevention funding in the amount of $30,000 to support substance abuse prevention efforts in Martin County. There is no cash match required and just staff time to administer the grant program. And that is the end of my presentation.
Good one. Commissioner Smith?
Stephanie, I'm just going to take advantage of the opportunity that's on the agenda. Item 4, bathtub. Dawn, I think I asked maybe a meeting or two ago, we absolutely need to have an agenda item that shows the historical nature of bathtub, what has occurred over the last 50 years out there. I think I shared with this everybody last time. I think Kathy Fitzpatrick had put together a presentation that had a lot of photos from maybe the 70s on or so. But I think we need to take the opportunity to show the public where we are today, but where we have come from, because I think there's a lot of misconception as to what exists out there and what existed in the past.
Yeah, staff's putting that together, and we were also looking to see if we had any of our consultants who might be able to come and participate with that. But so we'll coordinate with you if they're also under construction. We thought we could get some photos of what's happening out there too. So,
And with that, I would move Stephanie's recommendations.
Second.
Okay, with that, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Hurd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0 with Commissioner Jenkins absent. Okay. Now we have departmental number 4, Martin County Centennial Celebration Status Update by George Stokas.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair. George Stoke, Assistant County Administrator for the record. Today I'm here to talk to you about the Centennial celebration and the status, and coming back from the last time we had an item. There's a couple of things I would like to highlight, just to refresh the board's memory. We've been talking about the Centennial actually since 2023 for the one that should be celebrated in 2025. We were before you on November 7th and presented you staff presented a number of items before the board. At that time, staff some understanding of where the board wanted to move forward was we still need to do a logo conversion at a cost of $2,100. A plaque on the historic courthouse, we estimate that to be about $5,000. And that will match the plaque that is currently on the historic courthouse. And the verbiage for that plaque is found as an attachment to this board item. And then there was discussion about homing down the cost for the book, a proposed book. That book cost, and the quote from Ms. Campbell, I believe is a person, is attached to this board item at a cost of $8,332, and then the rest going towards production costs. But staff has made quite a bit of steps forward and accomplishments with the Centennial, and I wanted to just kind of highlight on your screen. You'll see we have created a webpage called www.martincounty100.com. Taking the spirit and direction from the board, we've kind of thrown some things in here. The seal is just kind of temporary until a logo, and the logo is created by a local high school student. Our various departments are donating numerous items to go into a bag that will be used as a contest. And I do need to talk to you about a possible selection committee for picking the logo, but that logo would then be placed right here on the front part of the web page. As we scroll down, we talk about celebrating 100 years. We have a photo gallery. Some of these photos have come from Ms. Thurlow's collection, the Martin County Historical Society's collection, as well as one of the reasons why Richard's sitting here is from the library digitization collection. I'll also note that if you hover or you click on the photo, it actually tells you where you got it from. I'm sorry. Yes, it is Palm City, and just to placate everyone, just to put it out there to all commissioners, we try and have an equal number of photos for each district. However, District 2 wins.
And her friend at her prom.
That is not the opinion of staff. However, there is the football team from Stewart. And then obviously we hit Marine. There's Governor George Martin. And this one was definitely for Commissioner Campy, just to let you know Palm City did exist.
Like that now.
Talk to firemen, and then my favorite, of course, is of an airplane. So, but there are plenty of pictures in here.
How old's the airplane picture? You know?
Yes, I do know.
And there is nothing built.
The airport was built.
The inlet.
And the inlet. It is from 1933, Commissioner.
Wow.
So, and that's one of the great things that staff has done is we've taken people's personal collections, we've taken collections from the Elliott and from the Historical Society and other folks, and we're categorizing them, we're cataloging them, and they're available for the public. And then Richard will also talk about what our friends at the library have planned and so forth. But Dixie Highway in Salerno, Commissioner for District 2. And of course, what I'm looking for, that is Francis Langford, before Commissioner Campy says something. And then, there's one in Jensen Beach. There we go.
I know.
I think. So,
See, a Smith for commissioner sign then.
and I'm trying.
Don't make fun of his age.
I used to, when Commissioner Hayes was here, I would use him for everything.
Before-
Anything that looked anything old, I'd be like, hey, look, there's your friends from high school.
So,
you, Patrick.
before this goes off the rails, Madam Vice Chair, we do have sections for history that we're working on for every neighborhood. We are working with some folks on that. You've seen the part of the gallery, and then taking kind of direction from the board. The last time, we're inviting the not-for-profit and other governments to celebrate with events. And you would click on the events category. It will take you to a calendar that would be similar to what you see our Tourism and Development Council have, and we're working with Ms. Narissa on that. We also went into the social media world. We're creating a hashtag Martin County 100, so people could start tagging their photos. This will all go live probably January 1st or the end of this year. More photos. Talk about how you can get involved in celebrating with not-for-profits and other governmental and quasi-governmental entities. We also have created an emblem request form. I apologize, it's not a logo, it's an emblem. I apologize. And then our staff will make sure that the emblem is being used appropriately by not-for-profits and government agencies. The Phase 2 of the website, which will launch in January 2025, will include community history, event listings, and more. This website is fully responsive. It's ADA compliant, which is very important. And this project was funded by our ongoing web support retainer contract. So we were able to find money within, which we are not spent by other projects, and cobble that all together to create this. And it will, Ms. Hagedorn and others have done a lot of work to make this as good of a project as it is. A couple decisions I need the board to opine on is for the emblem contest. My staff did remind me that I forgot to put in the board item that the board needs to opine on whether for a selection committee. Staff was recommending one member from the Historic Preservation Board, one county commissioner, which we made the assumption that would be Commissioner Smith, since this body had assigned him to lead this effort. One supervisor of elections or representative, the clerk comptroller, because she's also our county historian, and then I had one other, and I apologize. I think there was one, anyway, that would be 4 people. So we would need to know if you guys want to expand that, shrink that down. We'd like to keep it within 5 to 7 people because it gets hard to manage those. But we would like to launch that emblem contest. We've talked to the school district probably within March, depending on direction from today. The only other thing that I have on this item is really just a decision on the book, if you're okay with the plaque language, and then any other further direction you want to provide me. Before I hand it over, I just want to give Richard an opportunity to showcase what the library is doing as a part of your 100th annual celebration.
Good evening, I'm Richard Riley, the Deputy Library Director. So thanks to Commissioner Smith and Sandy Thurlow, we met in October of 2022 to start planning a digitization project where we borrow collections from local custodians, the Stewart Heritage Museum, Black Heritage Initiatives, as well as curators like Sandy Thurlow, Heidi McNabb, David Murray, Willie J. Thompson. So we just borrow those, we scan everything, we put it in our Martin Digital History site, and then we give everything back. We give everything back to the person. So it's a preservation, it's a cataloging, and then a presentation on the website. And we hired an archivist using ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act money, to do that. And then we got additional monies from Impact Martin 100, the Southeast Florida Library Information Network, and our Library Foundation of Martin County to fund it. So how do we get there? From the Centennial site, or even from the Martin County webpage, you can just search for Martin Digital History to find the site. And then right on the cover is Edith Coventry with her alligator walking it.
You can now.
There are 3,199 items currently in here. And when we scan them, we run optical character recognition, so you can search for words. I searched for Jenkins earlier and found that his dad had a little article in the fair's pamphlet from 1968. When I was sitting in the back of the room and Commissioner Smith mentioned bathtub beach photos, I searched for bathtub to see if we had scanned
We might
anything
not want to see
yet.
that.
So we've got
People in the bathtub.
right, this is a postcard from 2000. So as we scan those archival items, they'll be discoverable in here. And what's really great is the Digital Public Library of America is a huge nationwide platform. We've linked with them, so starting next month, all of these materials will be discoverable through their platform as well. So if anyone wants to participate, they can contact us through this website. It goes directly to our archivist, Georgian, and she can meet with them and review what collections they have, how they can be added, and then again, we receive, scan, and then return everything to the custodian.
And this part of the project was paid through one of your ARPA grant dollars, and I think you're almost through, you have about $300,000 more dollars left.
Correct.
So- And I apologize, Madam Vice Chair, the fifth person we were thinking as a staff for the book work, the emblem work committee or selection committee would be some rep from the Arts Council of Martin County. And I will definitely be hearing from Nancy here later for forgetting her, so. That is pretty much where I'm at with our presentation, Madam Commissioner.
The digitizing is amazing. It's really phenomenal. I have a lot of family members that will probably provide you some pictures. Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, two really cool things that came out of this, and they were sort of highlighted and mentioned. First and foremost is Sandy Thurlow. She came to me, I don't know, a year and a half ago and said, I need to talk to you about this, and we've got to get this done, and you got to figure out how to do it. And I said, okay, because when Sandy tells you to do something, you do it. We held that first meeting over the library, I don't know, back, you said it was October 22? It's hard to imagine that's already gone by that much time. But there was a lot of interesting conversation. We broke out into work groups, and one thing that had not crossed my mind, which I guess we have landed on, is all the digital platform styles that you could archive something under. And there's this whole idea of if there's written text in a letter, and there's names, and there's places, and there's dates, you want to be able to, if you're looking for a certain date and a certain something, you want to be able to put that in search, and it should pull up everything that touched that date or that period of time. And there's a couple different ways to get there. And I was like, oh, you know, how do you, and Todd Thurlow does a lot of this for his mom and with his mom. And really, both of them were incredibly instrumental in getting us to where we are today. And so just, it's a fantastic project. And it'll just keep growing. I mean, it'll keep, at some point, I assume it'll start self-populating. Do you know that?
I don't know about that, because we do want high quality.
Yeah, no, I understand. But I mean, I think there was conversation about once you start putting stuff in, it's almost like the Mormon church site that when you, Ancestry.com, you know, when you do that and you start populating, you start putting information, well, other stuff starts attaching itself to it and it starts finding it.
Yeah, once people start linking to it, it does branch out quite.
And so we will likely find stuff that no one even knew existed before, which is really the exciting part of this whole thing long term.
You're right. The discovery aspect is great because people start identifying things in photos that we didn't know about. So they're sending us feedback. Like, I think Sandy Thurlow's son noticed that. He was like, somebody found a picture of me as a kid in a photo, and we were able to identify.
And the real piece of all this, Sandy and I got, I don't know, 30 years ago, did an exhibit out at the Elliott when I was working out there a long time ago. And we did this huge photo pictorial history section. And it was amazing how many people would come into the museum, walk through the museum and go, that's me, when I was like 3 years old. You know, it was great. It was fantastic. And it just opened up an entirely new conversation that people didn't even know that photo existed. And there they are sitting on the wall in the photo. And so this will expand that whole thing a lot. People will find stuff about their family and their stories that'll be fantastic.
And a whole another section, Commissioner, that I really haven't brought up is we're working with the clerk's office intensively because she's also digitizing and categorizing all of her records I don't know how far back it go. I think it goes back to the beginning at this point. So I think at some point we'll have both of those merge through what's the one you said higher, the
Digital Public Library
Yeah.
of America.
So you'll be able to go back and see, if however far, who was the first fireman and so on and so forth.
It's remarkable technology. Anyway, thank you.
Commissioner Hearn.
I love what you've done. This is a great beginning, and I also love the selection committee. But I was going to add also, if we should ask, we should ask Mrs. Thurlow if she would be an honorary member of our selection committee, because she understands our history.
Sure.
I agree. Commissioner Camping.
In regards to the coffee table book, you said it has an $8,000 cost to put it together and then printing?
Yeah, if you look at the, again, this came from, and I always say it wrong, it's
Heidi Rich.
what was it?
Heidi Rich.
Heidi Rich. It's from Heidi Rich, and it's from October of 2023, so it probably needs to be updated. But she's, for her to design and, for the book, it's $8,332. And then I threw in $5,000 and some odd dollars and change for production. You don't have to go that high. You could limit me down to $10,000 and we just print the whole publication of books has changed, because now you can order as little as you want. You can order 10, right? Or you can order 200. You get more you get more value the more you order. But ultimately your true hard cost is going to be the $8,332 plus, the first run of books.
And like you said, this is an older quote already, so you probably have to refresh it. However, with that in mind, I was thinking there's probably a dozen companies or organizations that would love to have the ability to sponsor the beginning cost of that, to have the first, inside page of it or something, or a couple of different people. 10,000 is not a tremendously high bar to get to. One person or organization, entity might want to have that. I could think of a couple of names right off the top of my head. I won't share, but anybody that would want, because this is going to be obviously a collector's item and a keepsake. So, if you wanted to, instead of just putting it to our budgets, if you wanted, whether it's Commissioner Smith, who's our lead on the Centennial celebration, or any one of us could reach out to someone and give you a sponsor for that book.
And I think staff we agree with you, Commissioner. I think my concern is as a government entity, I don't know if we can really accept sponsorships. We'd probably be better off doing a grant through one of our not-for-profit entities like the Arts Council or the Martin County Historical Society, which I did have a meeting with them after our last meeting. They are willing to tackle that project, but both entities have kind of said to me, look, we need that seed money to put this together, and then, we can either reimburse or however, but I do need to work out those functions. I haven't figured that fully, completely out, so.
And George, the book is going to be for sale to the general public, correct?
Yes.
Yes, board directed.
Commissioner Smith.
And just for those of you who don't know who Heidi Rich is, Heidi has done all of Sandy Thurlow's prior books. And so the idea of using Heidi and having Sandy involved is that the continuity of design, layout, the entire theme strategy that they have used all these years for the Sewell's Point book, the Jensen Beach book, the Palm City book, will be very consistent both in size and format. It just will be much more of there was some conversation this morning about that. It'll be much more pictorial than it will be a voluminous explanation of the 100 years history of Martin County. To do that and to go back and add to all of that documentation is a lot of work. And in soliciting photos and artwork ideas for each part of our community having a representation in the book, at least in my mind, is a lot simpler than it is putting in thousands and thousands and thousands of words of history and documentation, because then it gets down to, is it right? Is it accurate? Who's giving you the information? Are you checking it? Are you making sure it's documented? Just like somebody asked, what year was the photo of the airplane flying over the airport? So, and you got to get it right. And if there was one thing I learned from Sandy a long, long time ago, when you're writing history, you got to get it right.
Well, I think if you're having the photo descriptives, you'd need that, otherwise you're just looking at pictures that have no reference.
There'd be a description
Yeah.
of the photo, but not the.
Correct. Well, Sandy writes those books. This is meant to truly be a coffee table book, where you were just looking through these great pictures.
Historical book that was presented this morning.
Yeah.
The History of Martin County. That's an entirely different
Yeah, it's
exercise.
text, that's texture.
Versus what this is.
Yes.
Great. Commissioner Hearn.
Yeah, Mr. Riley, didn't you say that there's $300,000 remaining in the ARPA grant?
No.
What did you say?
Madam Commissioner, there's ARPA, the book would not be an eligible ARPA expense. But because the book is the ARPA is supposed to allow digitization access of records from government and pictorials and all that so that you could access it from home. And, but he is whittling down his ARPA money, so. And what I'd like to have the time to do, Madam Vice Chair, and I apologize, because I have to put my fingerprint and sign on all the ARPA stuff, and I don't want to go to the Martin Motel this year. What I'd like to do is at least work with legal is to find a way to make this as cost neutral as possible. I can't promise that, but what I'd like for the board to do is at least authorize us to have some money to at least begin to look at the process and then work with the not-for-profits and see if we can make it a cost neutral.
Don.
So we are talking about our Centennial, and as Commissioner Smith referenced earlier, a conversation in October, and now we're in February, and pretty soon we'll be in the 25th year. So ultimately, it doesn't have to be today, but we are going to need direction from you is what is the goal of an upper limit of local funds that can be contributed to this, or do you want zero, and we have to just hand it off to somebody else and support it? So I think we've done a lot internally, as you can see so far, but there will be some events and other things, and you just need to ultimately be clear for us on what it is that we can spend. And there will be a time in the next few months where we will be at that kind of time where we need to know, because the time will be on us fairly quickly when we'll be in the year of celebration. It'll be too late to go back and create books or other things.
Commissioner Hearn.
For the book, we have MSTU funds, and every district is going to be featured in it. If you need seed money.
I'll do it.
Me too.
Yeah, $5,000 each district.
Yeah.
Fine with that.
2,000 from each. Can you do that?
Yes, we can do that.
Let them eat cake.
Because I'm nervous about sponsorships. I don't want there to be sponsors. You know, this book was sponsored by. Right. That's exactly right.
Wow, that's harsh tones. I thought that was great.
Okay, George, you have enough direction to proceed?
Yes, 5,000 from each district.
No.
2,000 from each district.
2,000 only gets you to 10 grand. It's 2,100. $21,000 to do all
You
that.
needed seed money.
Five each.
Okay, thank you.
5, 4.
Oh, please.
I'll negotiate with you behind closed doors then. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Appreciate it.
You know that that'll be one of those conversations, Don, 6 months from now. What did they really agree to?
That's right.
We're moving on to departmental number 6, Community Transportation Coordinator, Transportation Disadvantage Program, and Funding Update. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
I'm Beth Beltran. I'm the MPO Administrator of the Martin Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we are here today because we have a presentation about the county's Transportation Disadvantage System, or TD system, TD program. TD is a state program to provide transit to those people in the county that cannot provide transportation themselves because they are disabled, or because they're low income, or because there is a age qualification as well, 65 and over. The coordinator of the TD program in Martin County is the Senior Resource Association, or SRA. We are fortunate today to have Karen Deagle, who is the president and CEO of SRA, as well as the Director of Transportation, Chris Stevenson. He is here as well. And they are here to update you all about the county's TD program. And through your support, they're going to be telling you about all the successes they've had so far this year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Karen.
Thank you. Are you?
Oh, there you go.
Just click it. Move it. Actually, there we go. We've titled this Innovative Service Development Grant, or Development Grant Update, and I actually have to say that it's more of a Community Transportation Coordinator update. Thank you for allowing us to come before you today and giving you an update. So in 2023-24, we were provided great funding. We're very, very appreciative for your support. We did get from the Trip and Equipment Grant, which is a state, $300,000. We did receive the $750,000 for the Innovative Service Development Grant for transportation disadvantaged trips, totaling the $1,050,000. You provided a local match. That needed a 10% local match. You did provide that, but you over-provided it, which we'll talk a little bit about. So these are what we have accomplished so far. Again, this is 6 months into it. On the left-hand side, you'll see our goals, and to provide 15,854 dialysis trips. We are on pace to achieve that. Currently, we're at just over 9,600. We are also to provide 3,100 or just short of 3,200 non-dialysis trips to dialysis clients. We are on pace also. Right now, we're at the almost 2,800 persons or trips. Our travel times were not to exceed 20 minutes outside of the Indian town, and we're at 95% of that goal. Travel times were not to exceed 45 minutes to and from Indian town. We're at 98% of that. And we're to provide 28,000 total TD trips in Martin County using this funding. Currently, we are at over 15,000, and we will definitely meet that goal. 90% of the passengers have reported a favorable evaluation of the service. We have hit 92% in our surveys. So this is kind of a great graph I really like. We see back in 2021 the number of trips we were doing, and as you can see with the increased funding and promoting the program marketing, last year we did over almost 25,000 trips. We are on schedule to do the trip of over 28,000, which is amazing. So the nice thing about these trips is that when we first came on board to manage this program, it was very limited, and most of the trips were for dialysis. Because of the increased funding, as you can see, 60% are medical appointments. Of those medical appointments, 41% are dialysis, but there's 59% now that are getting their trips to other medical appointments, which is really important. Again, also, we are doing 30% of the trips are work, and then other trips, 10%, which would be more of the shopping and other places for individuals to go to. So with this additional funding, there are no trip limits. Previously, we had to limit them. What was the limit?
It was 3 round trips a week.
Right. So we have not had to limit anyone from as many trips as they want. This is a really great slide as well. As you can see, in 2021-22, we had 389 unduplicated passengers. We are now at 808 unduplicated passengers. This number is growing by 55 passengers per month who are calling us and wanting to be eligible for ridership. So that's been a great increase as well. The demand is there. We're providing the trips. This is really working well. So this is the one slide that I like to, I'm I'm going to preface this in saying this is something that we are really working on in the financial scenario in the future. Obviously, every year is going to be different. This past year, as I explained earlier, we received $300,000, the $750,000, and through the local match, you provided $166,000 of the local match, and then $12,500 came from both Stewart and Indiantown, so we had a match dollar of $191,000. If you remember, way back, we were looking at increasing that local match so that you would be over the 10% mark, and that's happened, and you can see what the impact is with the ridership numbers. Our challenge in the coming year, and this is one of the things I wanted to kind of let you know what's going on. Right now, as we all know, because some of us were up in Tallahassee, the budget is being proposed right now. With the TD, they have two different funding pots. One is for the the trip and equipment grant, and currently it's at about $59 million that they're looking at wanting to approve. The ISD grant, they wanted $4 million for that grant. What has been recommended by the House is that they would agree to $59 million, $3 million for the trip and equipment. You could take $1 million out of the trip and equipment grant. So what that does is it limits all of the counties from the funding for that $1 million. We're really working closely with the state legislators. Of course, it's got to go to the state and the House and the Senate. And if they do that limit, if they removed $1 million, like they're proposing, from the trip and equipment grant to give it to the Innovative Service Development Grant to keep it whole to $4 million, that would reduce everyone's funding. And the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage came out with a table, and it would reduce the funding for Martin County to $261,000 from the $300,000 that we received last year. Really, as I say, we are really working on advocating that not to happen because it hurts all counties. Our first proposal is for them to give us an additional $1 million to keep the trip and equipment grant whole and allow us the $4 million. The other one would be to limit the Innovative Service Development Grant to the $3 million and keep the trip and equipment grant whole. So, sorry if that's a little confusing, but I really wanted to speak to you about that. The Innovative Service Development Grant, again, we are going to be applying for it. We are able to apply for it one more time, being that it's an Innovative Service Development Grant. There's a limitation on the number of times you can apply for it. This is the third year we'll be doing it, and this will be the last year we're able to apply for this particular program. So we are putting a grant in this year for the $750,000. Again, up in the air. It's one of those emojis. Don't know. We're not quite sure. Again, thank you so much for the local match. We hope that you will continue to support this program because you see how it's working, and as well as Stewart and Indiantown, and hopefully I put a little greater than, because I'd love to have it even increased. We have been invited, we put into, for the Impact 100 Martin County, and Chris is going to talk a little bit about that program as well. Always searching for new funding to help us out, get the program going. So we have been invited, we spoke to them, and we have been invited to write for the grant, so that's going to take place as well. Again, we don't know if we would be privileged enough to be awarded for what we're asking for. All said and done, if all those funding came in as listed, it would look like we would be around the 27,262 ridership. So it might be less and it might be more. It all depends, and we all know how all of that works, but wanted to give you that update. Whoops, sorry. So I'm going to pass it over to Chris to talk about what we're going to ask and propose and what we're doing with the Impact 100.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Stevenson. I'm the Director of Transportation at the Senior Resource Association, or the CTC. Like Karen said, we are looking to apply for an Impact 100 grant this year, and we're very excited about that because it's really going to take us to another level for mobility that our TD passengers here in Martin County can go to book their trips. So currently, if someone wants to book a trip, they have to do it through the way that we call it the traditional method. They have to pick up their phone a few days in advance, call our call center, and book a trip with one of our customer care agents. But what we're proposing, and what we've sort of started already through a pilot program, is having an app that people can use their smartphone to use, and they can book their trips online at any time of the day. And they can cancel their trips, they can modify their trips, and they won't have to pick up the phone and call our call center. If someone still wants to use those traditional methods of booking, they'll still be able to do that because there are certain people that have cognitive or physical reasons why they can't use a smartphone. But the nature of public transportation is moving this direction where people can use their mobile device to book these trips. And so it's something that we've already implemented on a very small scale that we're hoping, if we get that Impact 100 grant, we'll be able to roll out at a much bigger scale. So you can see on there, people would be able to do all their booking online. They could do same-day trip requests rather than having to do it days in advance. They could modify or cancel or change their trips on there, and they could do it at any time of the day, not just when our call center is open. And so we've already started this. We started a pilot program over the last year. It's been offered to 20 individuals that we identified as TD passengers who were able to grasp the concept and thought they could use it. And it's gone extremely well. It's been offered to 20 people, and they've used it to book over 1,300 trips in the last 6 months. And so we are very excited about the potential of, if this gets funded by Impact 100, to roll this out to a larger group of the Martin County clients so that we can continue to offer this so people can book their trips that way. And if we get that Impact 100 grant, we project we'll be able to do about 3,000 trips to passengers using that app, and it would remove the barriers that some of them are currently facing. The example that Karen likes to give that I really like is if someone gets sick, they don't know they're going to get sick, right? They don't plan on that 3 days in advance. So they couldn't have called us and booked a trip to the doctor today if they didn't know they were going to be getting sick. So with the app and the way it works is if someone wakes up and they're sick, they can pull out their phone and use the app to get a ride to the doctor, to the pharmacy, things like that. And under our current traditional method, people are not able to book those trips because of the way it's currently set up for people to book trips. So that's the type of thing that we're looking to help improve here in Martin County with the TD program. It's going to definitely promote independence and social interaction, things like that. So we're very excited about it. And obviously, without the Impact 100 grant, there would be less trips provided that way, and we would roll it out slower. We're still hoping to go this way in the future, but it'll be rolled out slower without that grant. So we're very hopeful that we will get it here in the coming months. And Karen, I don't know if you wanted to talk about what we've done.
Yeah, so because of what I talked about earlier with the funding, we are really in close contact with the Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged about, future funding outlook, especially for the Innovative Service Development Grant. Again, as I said earlier, it is a 3-year term limit, and this next go-around will end as of June 2025. So we're hoping to get, the full 750, at least, some part of that. The other, we're advocating and exploring other potential opportunities. We've had meetings with the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council, the Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, of course, FPTA, Florida Public Transportation Association. Chris and I, the last time we were up in Tallahassee, we were invited to go to the governor's office and speak to the budget office about the programs that we're doing here, especially the Advantage program in tripping the disadvantaged or the developmentally disabled. And Florida Department of Transportation is understanding of everything that's going on. And then, again, the aging for persons with disabilities. So we're hoping to bring all of them together at some point to really try and understand how we can, and not just ourselves, but other systems in the state of Florida to sustain the programs that we're coming up with and knowing that they're so well used. And that's the presentation. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Commissioner Smith?
A lot, but it's getting late. First of all, fantastic, thank you. So, first question, if the funding doesn't happen the way you anticipate it happening, or hoping it'll happen, that's one question, what do we do?
That's right. That is a question. What do we do?
And that's probably the biggest looming
It is.
question.
That's my biggest concern, because I don't want to turn anybody that's been getting trips and the quality of life has improved.
And now where they're starting to rely on it, and now we pull the rug under, that won't be a happy conversation, probably. Do you know, I mean, I assume you know with all those numbers, do we have an average cost per ride? Do you know what it is?
So our current average cost per ride is less than $34. I want to say
That's fine, that's good, that's a good number. I've just, because we had a conversation last MPO meeting, maybe 2 MPO meetings ago, and the consultant that's doing our work for us on transportation as a whole, has the busing world reached its point? Like, you have Uber, you have Lyft, you have Freebie, which I'd never heard of, and still talking to him about. You start to wonder, with the money that we do either hobble together or that we are getting, does there come a time where the overhead of operating buses and managing buses and buying buses and all that kind of stuff, do we reach a point with what else is available now that if you had a Freebie system or you had a Uber system, it's directly to the house, directly to the destination. If it's $34 a person that's riding a bus, and we can get, a $12 a head or $10 or $15 or $25 a head with a different type of, completely different kind of structure, would we not be servicing the public in an entirely different, better way?
That's a really big question.
And so, no, and Karen, so it's not worth
Yeah, I
answering?
know, because there's many answers to that, and just a few different things that I'm going to hit on. So the persons that we're talking about using our transportation disadvantage program, a lot of them would not be able to use an Uber, right?
Of a standard Uber.
Of a standard Uber.
But if you were to contract out, if we were to go out to bid, all things transportation, full spectrum, from a perfectly capable individual to one who's fully challenged with how they themselves are mobile, and everything in between that you have to be able to provide that kind of ridership for.
So that's where you have your mixed use of different transportations, public transportation. Obviously, your mass transit is a lot less. For example, well, if it's running efficiently and you've got a lot of ridership, like Indian River County, we have our cost per rider on mass transit is $4.53 at this time, compared to the transportation disadvantage, which is obviously one-on-one, and so that's where you're looking at the $30 trip.
Yeah. Something to start thinking about. And then the other thought I had at the Transportation Committee subcommittee that I sit on, it would be great, I think, to have this as a conversation. Both the funding, where is the funding going? Where should it be going? How do we go as the state continues to grow like we are? Because I don't know, we have disadvantaged transportation conversations at those meetings, but I don't know that we've ever gotten into what does the funding formula look like and how does it move forward. Once you start building it, how does it, what if one year the legislature says we're not going to fund that program the way it is? Well, what do you do? And so, I'll talk to those folks and see if you guys are interested, but
Absolutely, always.
I think it would be a great, healthy conversation to have with them.
And as long as, when you're doing it, if you're talking about the transportation disadvantaged riders versus the mass transit, because that's two different,
Absolutely.
but they have to be coordinated, so, yeah.
Because the question that came up with the consultant was the federal dollars that we receive, are they convertible to another type of program? And there seems to be a little bit of ambiguity whether or not you can do that or not. Can those federal dollars flow through to an Uber, to a freebie, to a whatever? He didn't have the answer at that point, but there seems to be some question. I'm done, sorry. There we go.
I've got lots to talk about that one.
Okay, good.
Sounds like you're going to be welcomed back. Thank you for the presentation. Anybody else have any?
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you being here.
Great work, you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, that, I believe, brings us to the end of our agenda today. And do we have any, it's 4:51. Do we have any public that wishes to comment? Seeing none in the gallery. Commissioner comments, Commissioner Smith.
Comment, and I didn't pick it up this morning on my commissioner comments early this morning. One was the bathtub reef presentation, Don. The other, last week at the Regional Planning Council, we talked about last year's successes and priorities, and this year I've asked our Regional Planning Council, as their chair, to take on three. One is this wildlife corridor discussion, and I think listening to the presentations from Three Lakes today on how much open space and how much habitat they've created on a grander scale, on a regional scale, there's, I think, a really interesting opportunity for us to do our own wildlife corridors. So we're going to take on that. A whole transit conversation with South Florida Regional Planning Council was the other. And then the third one, what was the third one? That's escaping me right this second. Anyway, as we go down the line, it'll pop back, but the wildlife corridor, I think, should be a pretty healthy, interesting conversation. Yep.
There's always March 5th.
There's always more time.
Commissioner Campy.
I would just wish my colleague, Commissioner Jenkins, speedy recovery, and we missed you today.
I'm set.
Mr. Donaldson.
Just, we do have we're experimenting with a county picnic Saturday. I think it's March the 10th, or the 9th, yes. So anyway, just, we'll have more on at the next meeting, but something to put on your calendar.
I'm all set as well, and our next meeting will be March 5th. And with that, we are adjourned for the day.